Welcome to A Billion Realities. Here's your host, Jessica Gerlach. Welcome back to A Billion Realities. Today on the show we have a very special guest named Andru Winter. Andru is a Canadian-born songwriter, singer, rapper, and highly skilled martial artist. We have a full 3 hours with him today because, trust me, we are going to need it. His life story is mind-blowing, coming from humble beginnings to getting mixed up in a dangerous Asian gang in his early 20s, which led to trauma and blindness for many years, and ultimately leading him on a spiritual journey towards martial arts and a successful, rapidly rising music career. Hi, Andru. Welcome, welcome.
Wow. That's quite the introduction. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. How are you today? What's the situation up in Canada right now?
The situation is everything's locked down for the most part. You know, social distancing rules in effect. They vary from province to province. I think Nova Scotia right now is my home province is under probably like the most control right now. Like they don't even have a curfew. They're just in a 24-hour lockdown situation right now, and they're regulating the provincial borders. So yeah, it's kind of that's the situation right now.
All right, so it's the worst situation as far as lockdown in Nova Scotia, but the rest is a little more lenient?
Yeah, the rest of the country seems to be a little bit more lenient. Like I said, the strictest lockdown I see is in Scotia, right? Like a lot of my friends and family still live there, so I've been getting a lot of information on what's going on from them. But yeah, it's a lot of people are panicking. A lot of people are in a difficult situation due to the fact that, you know, their livelihoods are threatened for the first time ever. Like, I see a lot of people panicking with things that I've panicked about 100 times. You know, I can tell that they've never had any type of adversity when it came to their career in terms of maintaining it anyway. You know what I mean? I'm sure they have adversity within their career, but it doesn't seem like keeping the job and, you know, regularly keeping that income has ever been a problem. And I see a lot of people that seem to have everything all figured out. You know, a month ago, I see them panicking now, which is kind of odd, you know?
Right, because you've lived through, you know, the trials and tribulations, and a lot of people haven't, you know, especially in countries like, you know, Canada, for example, or even in the U.S., you know, certain people are used to stability, the stability that they thought they had, and then it just takes something like this to turn it upside down. So, yeah, it's a good point. So speaking of Nova Scotia, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your upbringing. Like, where exactly did you grow up? What was it like there? And how would you describe your childhood and your teen years?
Growing up in Nova Scotia was amazing for me. Like, my childhood and teen years, everything was pretty smooth. Like, I didn't have the perfect family situation. Me and my mother clashed a lot. You know, I don't want to sit here and, you know, throw her under the bus, but we definitely clashed a lot, and my mother definitely had a lot of problems, I think, instituting the discipline that she wanted in the home in a way, you know, that was, you know, balanced, you know what I mean? So it was just, you know, that was like my main thing growing up, is just constantly clashing with my mother. And to be fair to her, she did want the best for me. She just didn't fully understand the best way to in terms of what was best for me. But, you know, parenting doesn't come with a manual, and, you know, it's not really an issue. You know, when I think about it, I just forgive anything that anybody does, really, because, you know, none of us really know what we're doing. We're just trying to figure it out. So But growing up besides
Yeah.
that, it was pretty smooth, playing sports, enjoying things that, like, young people should be enjoying. Like, life wasn't too complicated. I didn't complicate my life early. I didn't get involved in things like I wasn't early having sex or early, doing drugs or drinking. Like I really took my time with everything. Did everything when I was ready,
Mhm.
and I tried to prolong, like, almost an immature childhood for as long as I could. Some people might see it as immature. I just seen it as not being in a rush to, like, take on all the problems that come with maturity.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that was probably good for you, but maybe isolated you a bit as well. Like you didn't get to see certain things possibly because you were like in your own little bubble in a way, which was a
Yeah.
healthy one for a child. So, I mean, what would you
Yeah, definitely.
say made you want to yeah, what would you say made you want to leave that area? If you had a happy childhood for the most part, healthy, normal, played sports. What was it that, pushed you to want to take it, go to another place?
Well, definitely there's just, like, a lack of opportunity where I'm from. Just because I walked around my whole childhood, like, blocking everything out and maintaining, like, a healthy little vibration and staying out of the bullshit doesn't mean that it didn't exist. Like, Canada, I don't, well, first of all, so I'll just, like, start off with a little bit of history. Nova Scotia is Canada's only
Perfect.
province that has black communities. The only province in Canada with black communities is Nova Scotia. And we're pretty much like a smaller populated area, and we're to the very far east coast of, like, North America, and we're very, very separate. Like, there's only a small little bit of land that connects Nova Scotia to the rest of North America and doesn't have it as an island, you know what I mean? Continental North America. So
Okay.
it's kind of isolated, not a lot of people. It's kind of divided on the race line. I'm not even going to play games with it. It's racist. Blacks are on one side, whites are on the other side, and then there's a gray area where I fit in the middle. A lot of mixed people, a lot of people that are European and African ancestry, a lot of people that look European that are hiding African ancestry, and vice versa. There's just a lot of issue around the
Wow.
concept of black and white, not so much the issue of nationality or religion or anything like that. It's literally, like, just black and white. But everybody also is around each other all the time. So it's a weird dynamic. Like, you'll have people living a common culture, but saying racist shit to each other and doing racially motivated shit. You know what I mean? But still having
Wow.
friends that are it's just a really complicated little scene. Like, you'll have groups of racist people down home that have, like, two or three black people in the crew that they love to death and they'll fight over. But they're calling everybody else names and starting racially motivated issues with other areas, So it's just and vice versa. You know what I mean? Vice
Wow.
versa, same thing. There's white people, like, minority of white people that will live in really, like, mostly predominantly black neighborhoods that are in the same situation. And I think it's more ignorance than it is racism because everybody seems to get along. Everybody seems to be mixing well. That's why there's so many people that look like me down there. But, when it comes to people's egos and
I
just
hear
what
you.
comes out of their mouth, it just seems to be, like, more of an
Right.
issue. So, I know I kind of got on a tangent, but that's the main issue. There's just a lot of problems. There's a lot of racial shit. There's a lot of, it's hard to get a job if you're a person, a minority, as they call. I don't think I'm a minority, but as they call you, a minority, just things like that. And even if you're not, even if you're a well-adjusted person that's in the majority population, you're still going to have a hard time in Nova Scotia. You know what I mean? So that was the main
I
motivations to
I
leave,
think it's okay. Wow, that's really interesting. And I feel like I lived in Canada for 10 years and I never would have known that. So I feel like it's something very specific to your area, which is great that you're telling people about that because I think a lot of people wouldn't know that, even probably other Canadians, unless they know somebody from the area, right? Because it's
They
such a
definitely
specific
wouldn't. Even
situation, like you said.
they really
Right.
wouldn't. I've met plenty of
Wow.
Canadians that have visited Nova Scotia and told me they were surprised at how many black people were there. And I was like, because when they see the commercial, they just see, like, the Scottish bagpiper up on the hill with, like, the wind blowing his kilt and, like, majestically, playing Danny Boy over the rolling
Yeah,
hills and the
of
rugged
course.
coastline. But, like, man, Nova Scotia it is that. There is that there, definitely, but there's also a darker side. And I don't mean, no pun intended, but there's a darker side to Nova Scotia. And there's a lot of racial injustice.
Yeah.
And Nova Scotians have been there in waves of migration. Black Nova Scotians, we've come in different waves of migration. First of all, we built all the British fortifications that were there from the initial war with the French as a group called the Maroons, a black group, engineering group, and building group. They built all the fortresses so the British could even go to war with the French over Nova Scotia, who initially colonized Nova Scotia, and it was called Acadia. New France and Acadia. The capital, I think, was Acadia. I might have to check my history
That's
on
amazing.
that. No one quote me on that one. But, and then we also came there as British loyalists in the American Revolutionary War. So we have the American Revolutionary War, and we came there as British loyalists. So when a lot of the British offered black slaves, money and land in Canada if they'd fight for the British cause and desert America. So we came in those migrations. Then we came in migrations as well in the Underground Railroad. So when slavery, just before slavery was ending, and a lot of slaves were escaping the South and making their way north to places like New York, Boston, all these different areas, Massachusetts, Michigan. There was also slaves that pushed even further north and made it to Nova Scotia. You know what I mean? And we're part of that wave of migration too. And a lot of Americans aren't aware of that history, that even happened. We're actually the last stop on the Underground Railroad. So, there's a lot of black history in Nova Scotia that people just aren't aware of, and there's a lot of light that needs to be shined on social injustice when it comes to that group down home,
Absolutely. And you feel like you were kind of stuck in between both worlds, and that must have been really difficult for you, especially because it was so
Definitely.
divided. Otherwise, you might not have felt it that way, but because it was divided, I could just imagine that you constantly feel like you have to choose a side. And how do
Definitely.
you really, right? Because
you can't.
Right.
If you're a person of mixed race, and I can speak on this because I'm both. The polarities are black and white. Everything else is in between, and I'm on both polarities. My mother is a black woman. My father is a white man. And I can honestly say, that when you are a mixed race person, if you do not embrace both sides of your heritage, you are half dead. And a lot of people walk around like that. They either denounce or, and get rid of the black identity, or the same way, they'll try to rid of the white identity and try to prove that, they're black to whoever, you know what I mean? And honestly, the only way to be a well-adjusted mixed-race person, and I'm telling you this from years of, wrapping my head around this, is you really have to embrace that you are neither, that you are something different, that people have not yet identified. Everybody loves to give Obama the credit as the first black president. But what about us mixed people? We didn't get the win. You know what I mean? That was a win for me. That's not a black guy. That is not a white guy. That is a guy like me who is a hybrid in between the two, and we make a different type of person. We make a person that's objective, a person that looks at both sides, that has to, is forced to. And I don't think people look at that enough,
I love that.
Mixed race isn't just one or the other. That's a slave mentality. The old mentality was that if you were even 1/7 Negro, you were black, or it was very far removed. You know what I mean? You could have a person so far down the line and you were considered, nope, you're black. You know what I mean? But no, it's not like that. But, growing up, it did make me look at both sides and really have to see what was bad and good about both sides and embrace both,
Right. That's amazing. And it's an interesting point that you bring up, too, because they did the same thing to Native American Indians. Because I'm part Native, but it was my great-great-grandmother was pure Blackfoot Indian. But you have to be a certain amount to be considered Native, So it sounds very like a similar type of thing, which is kind of ridiculous because it's funny. That's probably the smallest part of what I am, but I identify with it a lot, So, but like you said, I embrace all the different. I'm, very mixed, but I see your point. I think it's a really interesting point, and I love that you're educating the world about the situation in Nova Scotia, because I agree with you. After living in Toronto for 10 years, I never would have known any of that. So it's really interesting. So
Toronto
when you were
is
getting
a
ready
bubble.
to, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let's hear this.
No, it's okay.
No. So,
No, I was just going to say that
okay, but
Toronto is a bubble, you know, and if you're in the Toronto bubble, and if you're new to Canada and you're in the Toronto bubble, you might even have 3 generations in that bubble. But if you just stayed in the bubble, you do not understand the rest of Canada. I might as well tell you. Unless you've done some traveling and you went down and shook some hands and, you know, went around some, like, I've traveled every part of this country, north to south. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know what this country is, and I know what this country isn't. And if you live in a big city, you have no idea what this country is. You're just living a very, very small bubble reality.
very true.
Within this is a huge, what is it, like one of the 3rd or 4th largest countries in the world for landmass? Like, this is a huge country. You can't live in one province in one city and think that you know about that country.
Yeah.
You don't, you know?
Right. I was lucky. I did get to travel quite a bit. You know, Montreal, I loved. I went to Vancouver, Calgary. Whistler was amazing. Just the nature alone is just crazy. But I do wish I was able to travel a lot more than I did. But, you know, I had little
But have
babies
you ever
at
been
the
to
time,
Swift Current, Saskatchewan? Have you ever been to Antigonish, Nova Scotia? Have you ever been to Penticton? That's what I'm saying. Like, all those places you named, like, that's literally like what, like, people will, like, they'll do that tour and they're like, okay, I've seen, you know, this is a big country, I've seen some shit. But the thing is like, if you drive like 2-3 hours outside of a big city and you go talk to some people, you'll see what Canada really is. You'll see what the majority of Canada is. It's like, you know, if Canada was, you know, was a quilt or something, you know what I mean? The majority of it would be made up of very, you know, regular squares of fabric that make the body of the thing, and that's the average Canadian. You know what I mean? Hardworking.
Yeah. I noticed
in their own
that
bubble of work and yeah.
I hear you, because I remember we went like 3 hours outside of the city, literally in the country, a few times to like just cottage, you know, summertime, and it was very different. The people were super, just completely different, very like natural lifestyles and, you know, hardworking. But I definitely didn't get to travel enough, and Nova Scotia was one of the places I really wanted to see before leaving. But you know, I could still do it. But yeah, so speaking of traveling, so you decided to leave, and where did you decide to go, and why?
Okay, so I started off when I left Nova Scotia. I left Nova Scotia to go to Mokpo, South Korea. It's close to Busan. Busan's the 2nd biggest city in South Korea, Seoul being the 1st. Busan's probably like 3-hour, 4-hour drive away from Seoul, I think, or 5 hours or something like that. And I lived just very close to there. And the reason why I went there is because my father works for the biggest oil company in the world, and he was working there at the time, and I got laid off of a job. Like I said, times are tough in Nova Scotia. I got laid off, and I wasn't doing anything, and he was like, hey, you know, you just got laid off. You know, you need to find a new job, but, you know, why don't you just take this minute to come over here and see something? And I'd never been on a trip before, and he'd known that. I'd never even been on an airplane before in my life, before I went there. So that was the first place after I left Nova Scotia.
And how old were you then?
19 or 20.
Okay.
Or between 19 and 20. You know, I was there for a bit, so yeah, like 19, 20.
And how long did you stay there, and then where did you go after that?
I was there for 10 months, and then after that I left. I went back home. I was home for approximately like a month or less, and then I moved out west to pursue a career in the oil field in Alberta.
Okay, so do you feel that the experience in South Korea, was that life-changing for you? What kind of effect did that have on you as far as opening your mind to the world and wanting something different or to explore more other than what you had experienced back home?
There was
it a
two
trigger?
things in South Okay, so there would be 2 things in South Korea that I found that opened up the world for me. One was very positive, and one, looking back, was kind of like the beginning of other things that we're going to talk about later on in this podcast.
Yeah.
The first thing was just being the first day I was in South Korea, I got lost. I was supposed to take at the time, you couldn't drive from Seoul to Busan. Now they have a superhighway, which you can. At that time, it wasn't built. The only way to get to Busan was by plane. I got off in Seoul, being an inexperienced traveler, you know what I mean, never took a flight in my life, and now I'm in a different country. And I didn't get on my flight to get to Busan. And then I lost the number to get in contact with my dad. And even if I had the number, I couldn't figure out how to use the payphones because everything was literally completely different. Everything looked completely different than anything that I was used to. It was that crazy. So I literally got lost there. And the first night I got lost, I called home. I called my aunt at 4 a.m. and I was like, if my dad calls, tell him I'm in Seoul, I'm lost. I'm gonna keep calling you every half hour to see if they were in touch with you. Anyway, I end up getting their number. I stay there. I catch a flight the next day. But that was boom, instantly. I realized that life was that was the scariest I've ever been to this day. As a young guy, I never left home before, and then I'm in this crazy city of neon technology, crazy shit going on around me. Nobody speaks English, and I'm lost. And I didn't know if I was ever going to get home. I was like, yo, I just might, and I was running out of money. I was like, what's going to happen? Nobody, I was trying to get people to help me. No one would help me. I'm like, this is fucked. It's on me. And I had to figure it out. So I really found how to be an adult there. That was one big thing. And then the other thing too is just the experience of being somewhere that is completely different, where nobody speaks your language. Nobody looks like you. Nobody talks like you. You're just completely different, completely. And you don't know what's going on. It was an amazing experience that opened my eyes to the world, made me realize that this world is a great big old place and that I wanted a piece of it and I wanted to see it. Before I was content at home doing whatever. Now I want to see everything. I wanted a piece now.
Wow. So that was definitely your trigger. That's awesome. So when you went back, go ahead.
I was just going to say the flip side of that, the other part was, that was my first run-in too with Asian organized crime, was in actually South Korea. I was hanging out around a lot of what they call Westerner bars that cater to rich, older men that work in these countries, with these expensive jobs. And it's kind of like houses of prostitution, a lot of it, but a lot of it's just not prostitution. It's just the girl, hostessing. So you'll walk in, a girl will sit down, start having a conversation with you, hanging out with you, and as long as you keep buying her a drink, she'll sit there and talk to you. You know what I mean? No touching, no nothing like that. It's not like you. So a lot of it was that. So I was around the criminal element, and I started meeting Asian criminals because I had tattoos, and the only people in South Korea that had tattoos were criminals. So people, and it was, I later found out that how you introduce yourself to another criminal member of that world is to show your tattoos. So that was my first leg where I was I never even thought about Asians even being involved in that really much. I didn't associate those two things really too much. I never thought about it.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't have, in Nova Scotia.
I was ignorant, right? I was an ignorant kid from Nova Scotia. I thought all Asian people were very law-abiding and they do well in school. You know what I mean? They stay out of the way, they're hardworking. That was my impression. I never thought that they were rolling around with full body tattoos and doing gangster shit. It never really occurred to me.
You were a kid, so that was one of your lessons. An eye-opening experience.
And it left an impression. It left an impression too. I can't lie. It left a weird little impression. And I never really thought about it until when I was thinking about this podcast today. But yeah.
Wow, interesting. So yeah, just so everybody knows, Andrew and I are writing a screenplay about his life. So a lot of what we're discussing here today is actually going to be in his film. But we'll get into that as we get into the story. So when you left, why did you decide to go out west, and what was the allure?
Everybody from Nova Scotia and their dog were leaving to go work on the oil rigs. There was no money to be made. Everybody was just, it was like the gold rush back in the days. I'm can't to be damned, I'm going to the Klondike. It was that type of shit. Everybody was just packing up their shit and fucking leaving with the promise of making mega money out there on the oil rigs. So I had a few friends that I was hanging with at the time. We all weren't in school. We didn't really know what we were going to do. And we were just like, you know, like, what are we going to do? We might as well go on an adventure. Like, let's go try to do something. And we had a friend, a close friend at the time, who was doing really well for himself out there on the rigs. And we seen him at a party one night, actually, at a friend of ours' house. And it was just like, he just had a glow to him. He had the glow of money. That's all I can say. We never seen a guy look that clean back home before. And when we all asked him what he was doing, he just said, you know, man, working on these rigs. And, you know, that's exactly how he said it. And we were just like, huh. Then we were just hung up. We were like, we wanted some money, you know. We were tired of being broke.
Right. So did you ask him for some assistance there? Was he cool about it? Or, you know, how'd that go down?
So initially, like, what kind of happened is two of my friends moved out there before, like, we all decided to go, but they moved out there before me. And he helped them out initially when they went out there, and then I sent them some money once they got on their feet, and we all went splits and we got a damage deposit down and all that shit, rent down, and we all went splits on a place. So when I got out there, I was independent from the beginning, at the start, right away, living with my two close friends at the time.
Awesome. So what was it like when you got there? Was it like a whole new world again? You know, like when you went, obviously, to South Korea.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It was exciting. And like to see, because my friends were already out there, so it was really exciting for all of us at the time. You know, we all had money for the first time. You know, you were really seeing guys having money for the first time. So everybody had it. You know how money, excuse me. Sorry, I'm smoking that super Canadian weed. It's legal here. But anyway.
All good.
Anyway, yeah, like a lot of my friends or whatever, like, you know, it was my first time seeing them have money. And it was their first time having money. We were just excited. And, like, Nova Scotians are a pretty generous group of people anyway. So we were all just, like, geeked off the fact that we all had money. We were, you know, we could help you know, one another out if we needed. You know, we were doing generous things. Like, it was just, like, so it was exciting like that. Like, I remember the first day I was there, my boy picked me up in a rental car. Two of my boys, we were playing the new T.I. shit. It was just like, we were just like, I felt like $1 million driving down, looking at the big city, just feeling like, damn, there's like any possibilities out here right now for anything.
That's awesome. So how long did that, you know, high last of new environment, you're independent, you're making all this money on the oil rigs? How long did that last, and what were the highest points of that?
Well, the highest points were days off. You know, when we were all at work, I don't care what anybody says, we fucking hated our lives. You know, maybe only the guy that initially brought us out there. Like, I'm obviously not going to say anybody's names or anything like that during this podcast. But yeah, the guy that was initially out there, he still works in the field, and I think he was cut out for it. But I think the rest of us, we never had a chance. We were just doing it, and we were miserable. But man, those days off, having that pocket full of money, having like $7 or $8 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, and then just having a week, you know, and you're young, you got like, I don't know, we were just addicted to that. Like, we hated every day of working, but man, those days off, like, we would live our whole lives out in like 7 days or less. You know, we'd work for like a month straight usually, maybe longer, and then we'd like have 7 days off, and we'd just party as hard as we could for like 7 days, and then go right back to work and work for a month straight. So you could never get enough party because it wasn't balancing itself. It's like you just got home, you had to leave again for another month, you know. So, but yeah, it kept us going back.
Yeah, it sounds like an intense lifestyle. But when you're young, you know, you worked hard, you made money, and then you wanted to party. So it makes sense, you know. But at what point?
Not everybody's caught up for it. But if you're cut out for it, you can do it. If you're not, like, we just were. Like, we're a tough group from Scotia. Like, we were cut out for it. Like, we could do it. We just didn't mean we wanted to, but we could do it, you know.
Did a lot of people quit right off the bat? They were like, nope, not doing this, too hard?
I'd say 9 out of 10 guys quits the first day, and that 9 out of 10 guys has a way higher IQ than that 10th guy. I'm telling you right now. For a fact. Whoever decides to stay on that bitch is a fucking cold motherfucker, man. It's like, I don't understand. You know, it's whoever does that for a living, if you're listening right now, man, shout out to you, man. You're a tough motherfucker because you're keeping the heat on in people's houses and they don't even know about it. And you're out there literally working like a slave, so shout out to you. But I know it's gotten a lot different since then, too. Like, the labor laws have kind of, like, crack down. You know, it was wild when I was out there. There was cowboys out there, like literally. You know what I mean? It was.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's intense. So at what point did it actually fall apart? Because I know that it didn't last forever. So that's going to be interesting for people to hear. And how did it end up falling apart?
Man, drug addiction. I would say drug addiction is like the main thing, man. The main thing was like drugs. Like everybody around me was so hooked on drugs, and I was the only one not doing drugs. Like I was smoking weed. Like on my days off, I'd smoke a little bit of weed. You know, if I had nothing to do, literally, I'd go smoke a little bit of weed. But I wasn't sniffing any coke. I wasn't popping pills. I wasn't doing none of the shit that everybody else around me was consuming hard. And like that's another fact that I forgot to, or like another thing that I should say that I forgot to mention is like the rigs was riddled with like drug use. Like everybody around me was doing drugs, and you would see people that you would view as being successful, and they were doing drugs, and they were hardworking. They were working harder than most people that don't do drugs. So in your brain, you start to accept this idea that hey, if someone works hard and they got their shit together, it doesn't matter what they do. And that was kind of like the attitude that people had. But I'd say it started falling together with me and my friends just based on drugs. Like a lot of the boys were doing a lot of coke. They were experimenting with different things when they'd be off on the rigs with their buddies and shit. And they were just, man, I would come home and the house was just tore up. New people would be living in the house. There was holes in the walls and shit. I'd be just looking around like, what's going on in here? Like, you know, ashtrays filled with cigarette butts and shit stacked up. I'm like, what the fuck has been, you know, and then like all night long, people passing plates of coke around my living room. And just imagine being sober watching all this, you know? It was like, it was really weird to me, you know? It was really weird to me.
I can just imagine, but it probably desensitized you to the whole situation, just like you said. You see all these successful people doing it.
I got used to it, man. I felt like the weirdo. They were making me feel weird. Like, yo, he's not high. Like, what the fuck's wrong with him? And I did feel like something was wrong with me. I was like, yo, what the fuck's wrong with me? Like, why don't I want to do this shit? Like, am I a fucking nerd? Like, what's going on? But just never had the urge.
That's thank God. But interestingly or ironically enough, it was the people around you and their drug addiction that actually interfered with your opportunity, right? Isn't that how your situation ended up, you know, falling apart with the oil rigs? Because wasn't it your friend? He was just really messed up with the rent. Or I remember there was a story. I want to hear.
Yeah.
We want to hear that story. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, too, like, you know, me and my friends, a lot of my friends fell out, but like a lot of the guys, even in their worst states and being hooked to drugs, like they did a lot of shit for me. I did a lot of shit for them. There was times where I was just like depressed and fucked up where they picked me up, and there was plenty of times where I picked them up. You know what I mean? So like I'm not just shitting on them either, but it was just, I think it was the drugs that added to the confusion of the clashing of personalities and us being young and having money, egos, partying. You know what I mean? All this shit. Like, I think we were all tired, you know, all that shit. But sorry, I digress. What was the question initially? So
I was just. It's all good. We have a lot to talk about, so don't worry about it. You know, there's a lot to cover. It's just your story is so interesting, and I want to lead the audience to see the progression of how it all went down, especially when the oil rig stuff, you know, fell apart, when that job fell apart, where that led you. That's important to me. To tell them. So that's what I'm asking. Go ahead.
I remember now. Okay, so what happened is my last phase in the oil field, I had this fucking amazing job. I got a job making like $100K a year. I was doing directional drilling. It was like a job you shouldn't even have until you're like 35 years old or something. Like it just. My aunt's husband, actually, they weren't married at the time, but it was her boyfriend at the time. But he actually got me the job. But the thing was, I was able to do the job, or else I wouldn't have stayed there past a day. But he got me a job, an opportunity that just wasn't available to many people, and it was actually like a big time company. I actually signed a contract with him and everything. Like I remember going to an office downtown Calgary and sitting around a boardroom table. Like I felt like I was getting signed to like a sports team or something. Like I signed this contract, but the main reason I'm telling you that is because within the contract, within 6 months, I had to buy a new truck, and I had some credit issues earlier in my 20s or whatever. I fucked up with something that, you know, I had to pay back and all that shit, and it put me behind. And so when I went to go get the truck, they were just pretty much giving anybody anything at that time, but they told me, like, you haven't been at your place of residence, and with your credit score, you make enough money, this, that, your credit card's paid, all this shit, but, you know, we need you to be at your place of residence for at least a year. So I argued with them. I got them to, like, move it down to 6 months, but I just subletted a place. So I'd only been at that place, like, say, like 2-3 months. And then just before 6 months came, I had to renew because it was a sublet, and I had to apply for my own application because now it wasn't subletting. And everything was cool, but I sent the money to my boy. I was, like, working away at the time for, like, extreme amounts of time, and I wasn't even in a hotel. I'd be out on a location for, like, a month at a time. I was sending money home to my boy. He's my best friend. And he didn't give her the money in time for our place. I came home and I didn't have a place to live, but he was too scared to tell me when I was at work, and he didn't want to stress me out. But, like, not just that he was, like, being a dick, but he also just didn't want to stress me out at work, so he didn't tell me. So I come home, and then I'm just like, fuck, what's going on? He's like, bro, I moved your shit over here. I moved your shit over there. Just 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, someone just interrupted me. Yeah, so okay. So I gave the money to my boy. My boy did not pay it on time. We ended up not getting the place. Then the bank wouldn't give me the loan for the truck because now I had to change my place of residence. So I was just frustrated at the time. Like, I could have worked it out, but just being young and being frustrated, I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck everything. I'm taking some time off. I had some money, and I just kind of stopped answering the phone from my company at the time, which was really irresponsible because my aunt's boyfriend, who's now her husband, got me that job at that time. He was looking for me. He was worried. He was thinking I was doing drugs at the time or something. You know, that's what everybody else is doing. But I was really just frustrated, and I was just like, fuck, no matter how hard I try, just because I was trying so hard, and I wasn't doing drugs. I was trying to do the right thing. And I was just like, fuck, nothing's working out. Like, and then I was looking at some of my friends that were living in the city that were from home but weren't working on the rigs, and they were just kind of like selling dope around the city, like making tons of money quick. Like, you know, they had like all fresh shit, new clothes, nice shit. Like, you know, they're doing a thing there at the club every night with girls and bottles, and I was just like frustrated. I was just like, fuck, I just want to go party for a bit. So I just kind of went and hung out with like all my friends from home that were just on the bullshit, that weren't really ambitious, like not the guys that were working in the oil field. And I just started partying and just hanging out and pretty much rapping every day. That's not, like, we just rap every day. Me and my homeboy, we rap every single day. We just smoke weed all day and rap, listen to tapes. But we were just really fucking up at the time. Young people shouldn't just be like fucking not working, doing that type of shit. But before too long, my money ran out. Yeah. Before too long, my money ran out, and that's when things got fucked up. That's when I had to like face going home or making a drastic decision.
I hear you, and you know what? It's funny that you bring that up in that way. Like, when you're young and a domino effect starts happening of negative event after negative event, and it puts you in a bad place. When you're young, you can really be like, screw it. I'm just going to, do something else. Or I'm just going to chill for a while. And that does happen. And like you said, you run out of money. So I think that's really common for a lot of young people. It does happen because they don't really know which direction they want to go in yet. So I would love for you to explain what happened with the influence of these kind of hoodlums, let's say, that you were hanging out with at that point.
That's what they were. They were hoodlums. And just so everybody knows, that wasn't Jessica's choice of words. That's from a previous conversation with me and her writing on this movie that we're working on, and me explaining to her that the exact definition of these guys at this time was hoodlums. That's definitely, that's the most accurate word to describe what they were.
Yeah, but you guys were being young. Rapping, having fun, didn't really feel the pressure to
buying clothes, man. Buying clothes and rapping and doing dumb shit, man. Just not focused on anything productive,
So this is the point where I think the story does get really interesting, because you start hanging out with these hoodlums, but you start learning stuff because they're doing shady things, right, to make money, and you're basically watching this and thinking to yourself, damn, I could do that so much better, or it could be so much more organized, So you were literally watching what they're doing and kind of
Yeah,
analyzing and kind of
exactly. Yeah.
schooling yourself at the same time. So let's hear about that because that's interesting.
Yeah, so I just started watching what was going on in the city. I was watching, first of all, there's drug addicts everywhere in Calgary, everywhere. Like, all over this, anybody that's been out there, like, at that time, say 2005, 2006, 2007, 8, it was wild out there. Like, there were so many homeless people downtown Calgary. It's just disgusting, right? And I don't mean disgusting because there's homeless people. I mean disgusting that our social situation got to the point where you have such a clean, beautiful, powerful, pristine city, white-collar city, and they have that many homeless people downtown with nobody attending to them, and just, like, so I'm, like, watching how the drug trade's working. I'm starting to notice there's gangs in the city, like, real gangs, though, like, not like gangs from home. Like, gangs back home are, like, loose collections of guys from neighborhoods that, had an agenda, and they would go to war with other groups, Like, these gangs were organized. It was, expensive foreign cars and a lot of money and a lot of, like, just money. I never seen that much money. And I seen, like, runners and, like, all these different things going on around me, and I was watching how even the guys that I was hanging with were making a little bit of money. Like, they weren't hustling on a heavy level. Like, they'd go pick up some, like, drugs, right? They go pick up, like, a little bit of crack, and then we'd walk out to the club, and whoever they seen just on the street on the way to the club, you'd see a bunch of people, and they'd get rid of it on the way to the club. Then they'd show up at the club with, like, $600-700 in their pocket, ready to party for the night. Just that easy,
Right.
just to walk up to the club. So I was just, like, taking in the economics of the situation, but still, like, I wasn't ready to, like, I wasn't even thinking about that because the way that they were doing it, it was so dangerous to me, like, how they were, like, when I was watching how they were moving, I was like, these guys are kind of dumb. Like, they're going to get fucking fucked up in this game if they don't smarten up.
Yeah.
Like, I think they thought it was a movie. I was looking at it more, like, realistic, and I was just like, but then my devilish mind at the time started, like, working, and it started being like, yo, you could do this better than these guys. I don't know if it was ego or what it was, but I just started thinking I could do it better, and I started, like, really paying attention to that world more and more due to the necessity of needing money, the pressure of needing money slowly closing in on me as I'm watching my bank account dwindle from the money that I made on the rigs, right?
Right. And so what would you say was the strongest pull? What was the allure of, getting involved with a gang? You're seeing all this and, what was that? What was the strongest pull?
The strongest pull for me was just necessity at the time, but also just, like, insecurity, like to go to a realer place here in this conversation. Like, at the time, money was definitely the driving factor. Like, I wasn't doing it for any other reason other than financial. Like, I was approaching it with a very capitalist mentality. Like, but the thing maybe that pushed the ego enough to, like, challenge myself to even get involved in something so dangerous was probably purity of feeling like I wasn't, like, here I am working hard, not doing drugs, like, did all the right shit, you know what I mean? And then, it just seemed like there was no recognition for that at that time. Like, it seemed like no girls cared if you had your shit together. Here, like, girls were running out the club with my buddies. My buddies were living like 7 men in one apartment. And, like, some of the richest, baddest chicks in Calgary are leaving the club with them, not giving a fuck. And I'm like, wait a second, like, how do these guys have everything, So I was just, like, looking at what social, like, the social side of it, I was insecure. Yeah, and I wasn't a social person at that time. It took me many years to learn to be social. So I was a little awkward. I was a little antisocial, a little, like, weird to talk to maybe. Like, I just wasn't fully myself. You know what I mean? And that probably kind of pushed it. But definitely the economic factor and the pride as well of not wanting to go home and say that I failed, man. Like, I just didn't want to go home and say that I failed. And honestly, there was help. Like, honestly, like, my dad, if I called my dad and I told him that I needed help, he would have figured it out, or he would have figured out how to try to help me out, or, like, you know what I mean? I had the support. It's not like the support wasn't there. It's just my pride was like, no, I'm a fucking man, and I'm not going home, and I'm going to do whatever the fuck it takes to not go home and to be successful. I left. on this quest to be a man now, and I'm not turning back and fucking backtracking.
So
I'm
pride
going
was
forward from here.
definitely right. So pride
Pride,
was
definitely.
definitely a factor. But
Pride.
also what I wanted to ask you, we haven't talked about this yet, but was there a sense of belonging to like a family, being away from like your family and your people that you're close with or care for you?
Yeah,
Was there any
definitely.
sense of that? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even lie. There was that, but not as dominant as other people. Like other people that were around that got involved in that world that I looked at, that were around me. I seen that a lot more dominant in their motivation. My motivation
Okay.
was more about money than anything, but definitely that was there. Like I grew up playing on. When you play group sports growing up, you'll always have that mentality. And then working on the rigs, working with like 4 guys, just me and 4 other guys all the time out in the woods. Like, I was used to having that sense of brotherhood and seclusion that comes with like being in the military or being in a
Right.
fraternity or like that brotherhood. And then when I fell out with a lot of my friends, like at the time that I moved out there with, and, I was just kind of like, fuck, man. I lost all my core friends from home, started losing contact with them. Like, all the guys that I was initially out there with in Alberta that we left home together and went out there, I lost track of them. And yeah, I was kind of on the outs with my family at the time. I wasn't talking to my family a lot, like very rarely, just enough to tell them I was alive, so they wouldn't worry,
Wow.
but what wasn't in a lot of contact. So yeah, the camaraderie was definitely a factor.
Yeah, I've heard that it's a really common thing with young people who get involved with gangs. Obviously, the money, the lifestyle, this sense of belonging to family who's got your back. At least it appears that way. But
Yeah.
as you found out, it doesn't stay that way. But before we get into
No.
the negatives, what were the highs of the lifestyle when you got involved? And actually, let's hear about your first day, if you want to talk about that. Because you had never done anything like this
Like
before.
my first
So,
day seeing these guys doing this shit, or like when I actually got physically involved myself.
well, you can talk about both. What was the final turning point where you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then how was your
Okay,
first day?
so that's the important thing is what was the turning point. So like
Yeah.
watching like my knucklehead friends pedal their dope up and down fucking 16th Ave in Calgary wasn't really like appealing to me. Crazy shit was going on. We were involved in a shootout one time out in front of a club called Victoria's. It was like a predominantly black club in Calgary at the time. It was popping, by the way. It was crazy in there. And one night, like,
Wow.
a group of Somalian guys went across the street, started popping shots at a group of Scotians. Like, I got down behind a barricade, like a concrete barricade, and like ballistic marks were on the barricade. Like, you know what I mean? No one got shot, thank God. But just like things started happening, I was just like, you know what? These guys are knuckleheads. They're gonna get themselves smoked. Like, I'm not trying to play this game out here. Like, I didn't even think about it. But then something happened. Is I found out like a close friend of mine was making money in another city that's like 2 or 3 hours away, and he had like bags of money. People just kept telling me he had bags of money, but he was never the kind of guy to ever like get involved with like drug dealing or anything like that. So I was just like so curious, like what the fuck is he doing? And that's what made it appeal to me too, because he was like me. He wasn't one of those guys. You know what I'm saying? Like we both played
Right.
sports growing up. We went to the same high school. We were pretty good guys. Like, you know what I mean? All around, we're pretty good guys. Like, we stayed out of the shit for the most part. So it was like, I was like, what the fuck? He's making bales of money and I need money? And he's like
Right.
smart. He's not like these guys that are fucking knuckleheads. Like, I was curious. So I went down to go see what he had going on. I asked him if I could come down. And the first day I showed up there, I realized that he was like selling drugs like on some kind of level I've never seen in my life. And he was making a lot of fucking money. And it was really odd. And that's when I decided to get involved because I was already involved. As soon as I got off the fucking bus and got in the car, he went and did a deal. I was already involved. If we got pulled over, I'm going to jail too for trafficking. So I was involved like right away. But I was like open to it because he was doing it in an organized way. It was sophisticated. He was making a ton of money, and he was telling me crazy stories about all these guys that he got involved with to even be in this position.
Wow. So on your first day, and you see all this happening right in front of you, obviously you've never experienced it before. How would you describe that? Was it exciting? Was it scary? You know, a little bit of everything?
I just couldn't. I was so like, I don't even know what I was thinking. First of all, he was acting totally different than I've ever seen him act. He was not playing no fucking games. He was all business. Like, I never seen him so serious and so fucking like alert and so like on point. Like, me and this guy have been friends for a long time. Like, you know what I mean? I've known him for a long time. We went to junior high together. We went to high school together. We hung out. We partied. You know, we went to the same school. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we just like, I
Yeah.
knew this guy, and I never seen him like as on point, alert, and dead serious about something. So I was just kind of like taking in his energy. And then he had this young guy with him at the time that he was like training at the time. So he's like bossing this kid around, treating him like shit. And I'm thinking in my head, who in the fuck is this guy? Like, he's like, yo, fucking blah, 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 blah. He's barking at this kid, and this kid's like doing everything he says. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm just sitting in the back seat. Then we're pulling up, seeing some of the craziest people, man, like, you've ever seen in your life. And we're serving them hard cocaine right out the window,
Oh,
like it's
wow.
legal.
So
Yeah.
what were the highs of the lifestyle once you got going with it? Once you started making money, how was your lifestyle shifted from, you know, working on the oil rigs and barely having, you know, many days off in a row? You really didn't have any balance. Now you have all this money. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say easy money because it's a massive stressful risk. But what was it
Well, we
like? What was
were
that
we were
switch?
working from 9 o'clock in the morning, by the way, till 9 o'clock at night every single day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, like that's how it worked. 9 in the morning till 9 at night, or 9 at night till 9 in the morning, and we're responsible for that shit every single day. So the responsibility was just as great as the rigs. It was just the same kind of thing. It was as disciplined. It was a well-oiled run machine, and
Okay.
but the clout, I guess, what people call it now, of going to these clubs, people knowing that you're affiliated with this group, the money, fly shit, meeting up at restaurants in the middle of the day, having big meals and shit, and people walking in, showing respect, and like just like fly shit, fly cars, like, you know what I mean, like fast women that look, you know what I mean. At the time, I was just very blinded by, you know, materialism and physical things, and yeah, so it was just like very like overwhelming, I guess. But I felt a sense of power, like a definite sense of power, and
Right.
I immediately started adjusting to the environment around me. I realized I couldn't be the same guy that I was around these people because they were dangerous. So I had to be dangerous too, or else they're going to eat me up. Like, I knew enough to understand, you know, you can't go play football and not expect to get tackled, right? So I had to toughen up and get ready, you know what I mean, and present myself in a way that was going to keep me safe around
Yep.
predators, you know what I mean? I had to alpha up.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously you had all these perks of the lifestyle. What were some of the lows that you started to experience?
Man, first of all was just like looking over your shoulder 24 hours a day, 7 days a week part, like, and also the fear for me, like the greatest fear I had at the time was not going to jail. It was not getting killed. It was not none of the shit I should have been worrying about. It was literally worrying about what my family would think if I was on the front page of the newspaper involved in some shit that seems like it's out of a John Woo movie. Like, it just
Wow.
wouldn't, I just didn't know. Like, I think it would fuck their head up, and that's what scared me. I was thinking about hurting them. Like, them thinking, like,
Aw.
because they tried so fucking hard, man. Like, even though things weren't perfect, they really tried their best. And my dad was there for me. He stuck in there. You know, yeah, it was like, it was really crazy at the time. Yeah, it was just like, that was the main thing. Just worrying about my little sister, all that shit. Like, just, you know,
Right.
that was what I was
Yeah.
the main thing, and just looking over my shoulder too. So then I was scared of the police,
Right.
right? Because I'm looking over my shoulder, and they have gang unit out there, and we learned that gang unit don't play no fucking games. They like when you're a criminal or when you're affiliated with criminality, the police don't treat you like a regular citizen anymore. You know, the police treat you like, you know, a
Yeah.
stone cold killer. They'll beat
Yeah,
you up. They'll fuck with you. They'll play games with you. You know what I mean? Because now you're a
definitely.
problem, and you're a target. You're a problem that they want to get at.
Yeah.
So,
So, how
yeah.
would you say would you say it was constant stress? Like, were you constantly on edge, or did you just get into a routine that almost became your new normal?
Yeah, hypervigilance, I think they call it. I think it's called hypervigilance. Like, we got into that where we were literally watching every single thing that's going on around us. Like, we're no longer just kind of like floating through life, like just like singing the song on the radio, tapping on the steering wheel. We're now watching every single car. We're looking at every single license plate. We're watching every single person. We're checking their energy, their demeanors. Like, we became very hypervigilant. So,
Yeah.
very stress, like high stress situation, even though you're not fully realizing it, puts a lot of stress on your nervous system to be looking at every single aspect of everything that's going around you at all times, every day.
I can just imagine. And you also become sort of an expert in psychology because you're constantly reading body language, people's behavior, people's patterns around you, So yeah, that makes sense. Like that hyper alert, hyper aware state of mind where you can't really relax. So I'm sure that
No.
takes a toll eventually on a person. When would you say that type of lifestyle and the pressures that came with it, when did you start to feel the actual damage that it was doing to you spiritually, mentally, and emotionally?
I didn't feel that until almost before, I'd say like a year before I stopped living that lifestyle. Actually, within 10 months, within a 10-month stretch, I really started feeling that. Like, I started to really think about, where am I at in my life? What am I doing? Where is this going?
Right.
And what am I doing in the community? Like, I started seeing the effects of what I was doing in the community, man. And I was really just raping the community pinching it for every penny that I could get. And I was watching people turn into zombies right in front of me. Like, I'd see people come in fresh. Like, they look like you never know that they were doing what they were doing. And then by the end, man, they would just look like hell. It would just look like the soul had been sucked right out of them. And I was
So
like
you
providing that, you know what I mean? That's
and
how
you
I felt.
literally wow. So like you literally watched people deteriorate and their lives
Plenty of
obviously.
people, yeah. And even people around me, and seeing people expire around me. Like, people died around me, too. Don't get it twisted. Like, people died in the time that I was
Wow.
involved in that. People that were close to me like my everyday friends, but people that I was associated with, people that I'd grown to like, people that I had a rapport with, passed away during that time. And it made me think real long and hard about what I was doing, and realizing the game that I was fucking playing was for keeps. Like, when that set in,
Wow.
because I was only thinking about money. Then when people started dying, I was like, because I heard about shit, you hear about shit. It's not like it's just wide open, right? You hear little stories, and when people started dropping, bodies started dropping, I was like there's like a cold, disgusting feeling just came over my whole body, where I realized, like, holy fuck, you're in the pit of hell, and you better put on your gasoline boots and start walking, because you got yourself here, you're going to have to get yourself out. And that was like overwhelming, psychologically, spiritually, all that
I,
shit. I started learning about God a bit, started what I call God. I just mean the higher power, but getting in touch with
mhm.
that higher power a bit, because I needed guidance and there was no one to talk to.
Wow, that's intense. And can you describe what it was like to interact with these active addicts at the time? Like going from, let's say, a healthy or seemingly healthy state of mind, dealing with a person, and what was the deterioration process like for you to watch?
At first, you're just excited to have them because they're new and they're fresh. And when they're new and they're fresh, they still have jobs and money and cars and houses. And, like, it's smooth. You're pulling up at a nice house. It's not sketchy. You're going to deal with somebody, like, whatever. But as, like, you see them deteriorate, now they're meeting you on a corner, calling you from a cell phone anymore. Oh, I lost my phone. They're giving you reasons. They're calling you from payphone. Like, you see their family before because they're like, hey, meet me in the garage. If my wife, just say you're my buddy, so you're seeing their family start to like look at you like, who are you? Why is my husband in the garage with this young man? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? Like, you just start to see, and then you start thinking about their lives and what their dad's doing behind the scenes and nobody knows. It's gonna fuck their life up. Like, just seeing a lot of fucked up shit, and like seeing people tell me their problems, seeing like whole families get addicted, and then like be lying and manipulating each other for drugs. Like, like the mom calling saying don't tell the dad, but meet me in the alley, and then the dad calling like half hour later, not knowing that the mom just called and saying, hey, if the mom calls, don't let her know, but can you meet me over here? Then the son calling, and then just looking at a whole host of manipulation and fuckery, and these people look like hell, and you're like, damn. And you're just taking their money, and you're making a lot of money. So you're like, fuck, like, you're soaking them because they're making a lot of money. You're not doing anything. They're out there making the money, and then you see them turn into criminals. You see them turn into thieves. Guys that had jobs are now breaking into cars, calling you saying like, hey, I got this, or I got that, or hey, I just got this. Like, they turn into what we call boosters, like going into stores, like stealing clothes and selling it to dealers and shit, or TVs, or stealing from people and shit. You just see like people go down like a fucking path, like into criminality, really.
What kind of conversations do you have to have with yourself to make yourself okay with what you're doing at a time like that? Do you say, well, it's their choice, that's what they want.
Same conversation
that
same conversation that the CEO of Marlboro has to have with himself every day when he goes to work. You're like, you know what? I'm in the business of fucking making money. I'm not worried about morality. Like, you have to make yourself completely focused on the money aspect. You can't get emotionally involved in anything, and you got to stay cold anyway, because drug addicts are some of the most manipulative people on earth, and they'll swindle you. If you like, if you're not cold with them, they'll finesse you easy, and they're
I know
like,
that
they can, they'll manipulate for whatever, however.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you have to be cool with these people at the same time, because like you get in the state of mind of not treating them necessarily like people, but treating them like customers. And every customer has a rating with you. Some customers have a 0 rating. Other customers are like 10 out of 10. You're rushing to go see them. Like there was customers I had that were like my friends. Like I like them. I can't help it. I like them. They're cool people. I like them. Like, even though I'm peddling them poison, I couldn't help but like them. Other ones I fucking couldn't stand. They're fucking pieces of shit. You know what I mean? So, you just look at them like customers, but you're not. But it's business, and every customer, it comes. You come with you know what I mean? You're just running a business. That's all you're thinking. You're not thinking about anything else. You're just running a business.
Right, until it's so damaging to you that you're kind of deteriorating yourself, which is what actually happened to you. And I think that's what separates certain types of people who can do that for a lifetime and other people who, they have that spiritual side that wants to climb through and say, you can't do this anymore. And eventually you saw so much and were so traumatized, right, that you were just like, okay, you know what? Like, it's time to try to step out of this. So what were the turning points for you that made you say change?
Turning point for me, like a huge turning point, was like meeting my girlfriend. Like, I met a girl at the time that was like amazing, and she was like just getting off drugs herself. Like, she wasn't smoking crack, but she was like doing a lot of coke, and she had a drug problem at the time, and she was trying to get over it, and I didn't do drugs. So we really, like, within the group, we clicked because she's trying to get away from drugs. I'm the only one in the group not really doing drugs. So, like, we clicked, and, like, I started caring about her a lot, and then she cared about me a lot. And when she started caring about me, it kind of, like, warmed my heart back up and made me start feeling some feelings again. And then she would, like, cry to me and tell me, like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do if you go to jail. I can't, like, she basically was telling me she couldn't function. Like, something bad was going to happen if I wasn't in her life. Like, and she would be scared to fuck that I was going to go to jail. And that started making me scared because I was like, I didn't want to hurt her. So I was like, fuck, if I go to jail, this girl's going to be fucked up. Like, so I was like, I couldn't, that was like one of the things that warmed me up. But also just like the reality setting in that like, this life is just not, like, it was never for me. The same way the rigs wasn't for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a job. Like, I didn't, like, this is the part that might make me a psycho, is that I was able to do that job the way anybody would do a job. Like, I really ran that job like I would manage any other job, and I did a really fucking good job, and it ran well, and the communication was well, and, you know, a lot of money was made and all that shit, you know, but I was just able to approach it like that. But then, you know, once I started caring again, and I felt like someone cared about me, and then I started realizing that people that my parents and shit, like, I do got people that care about me, you know what I mean? I was just in a fucked up state of mind, and I just tried to push everybody away. Like, that was just like, you know, okay, I gotta fucking, and I didn't want to die, man. I didn't want to fucking die. That scared the fuck out of me. Like, when people started dying, like, that literally scared the fuck out of me. Like, because, man, I was so dumb. Like, when I got involved, like, here's the thing, man. I got involved, and I was able to make everybody feel like I was that dude, but I wasn't that dude. You know what I mean? I had to put that on, and I don't even know how I pulled it off. So, like, once I got back to my actual self again, and I started, like, you know, and then having, you know, this is another turning point. I got fucking scared when people that I were scared of started getting scared of me, if that makes any sense.
It
like,
does.
People that
any one of you can turn on
looking at me crazy.
Yeah. And in that
and
lifestyle, people can turn on each other at any time.
Yeah, so I was like, wait a second. I'm becoming like something I'm not supposed to be. Like, I became like a different character. Like, I became a darker character. Like, that money really, I didn't have to do no drugs. I didn't have to get involved. It was just money. It fucked me up just as much as doing drugs would have fucked me up. It was just like, it was that money.
Would you say that that lifestyle and the type of things that you were doing were deep down morally not okay with you, and that's what made you feel sick?
Oh, definitely, man. My mom didn't raise me like like I said, man. She's not perfect, like nobody is, but she definitely didn't raise me to be out there fucking just taking advantage of human beings for financial reasons. Like, that's not how I was raised. My father's a hardworking guy. My father's not involved in anything. I've never seen my dad involved in any type of fucking bullshit, like nothing like that. He's a straight fucking shooter. My family is like, you know, I have a lot of family involved in law enforcement, you know what I mean, on my mother's side, you know what I mean? Like, all these things, like, would have scared the fucking shocked them. Like, it would have, it's probably going to shock them hearing this podcast, you know what I mean? Like, for real, but it was just like at that time, like, I was just like, the morality was placed in me by my family. You know what I mean? Like, I was taught to treat people the way I want to be treated, and to, like, offer a helping hand, not to offer a hand to take something from somebody. You know, I was never allowed to take shit from no one. I stole, like, one thing in my life, and it was like a little, like, 5-cent candy, and I walked home with it in my hand the whole time, and I showed it to my mom when I got home. I was like, I stole this. And she made me walk like 20 minutes back to the store and give it back, and then walk back home again. Like, so, I wasn't raised around riffraff. And now I was the epitome of fucking riffraff. I was the worst. Like, I was like, how in the fuck does the good kid become the worst kid out here?
Yeah.
How does this happen?
You were the one in sports, didn't do any drugs, and yet you find yourself heavily immersed in an Asian gang, which is a super dangerous gang, by the way. But also, it just goes to show you that it's how easily a young person can be persuaded, end up in such a volatile situation, such a dangerous situation, just like circumstances can, like we were saying, be a domino effect of negative event after negative event, leaving you feeling stuck. And, you know, what advice would you give to young people if they're finding themselves in a in a bad, financial situation, or they feel alone in the world, whatever it is, whatever their bad situation is, what kind of advice would you give them before stepping into that world? Because we know it's literally a dark underworld that exists, that they have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
I would say, if I could give the young people that are listening any advice at all, it would be to never equate money with success. Never think because you don't have material that has any indication of your intelligence, your ability, your potential. And that's what our world does. We live in a world where money talks and bullshit walks, right?
Right.
And in that money talks, bullshit walks world, there's a lot of people out there, some of the brightest people, some of the people that are the most well-adjusted to living a balanced life. They'll never get heard because people will say, shut the fuck up, what do you know, you're broke. But what people don't understand is what the Notorious B.I.G. told everybody. The more money you get, the more problems you have. And that ain't no cliche line. I'm not saying that shit to be funny. I want people to really think about that. The more you have, the more energy it takes to maintain it, right? This is important. The more you have, the more energy it takes to maintain that shit. And with the energy expended, there's only so much energy that you have to give in the run of a 24-hour cycle. Everybody has the same 24 hours, but it's how we break up that 24 hours that makes the difference between having success or not having success out here, achieving what you want to achieve. So the biggest thing would just don't equate money to success. You don't need any type of money. You don't need any type of designer thing. You don't need any type of badge on the front of your vehicle to make you feel any better than you ever were. None of that shit will ever matter. Once you become completely whole, spiritually, mentally, all those things, then go get that BMW. Then go get that Mercedes, because then there's nothing else to get. But make sure that you're happy with nothing first. If you can be happy with nothing, then you have everything. That's my advice to young people.
I love that. And just to know that your value has nothing to do with how much money you have. So your value stays the same when you aren't successful yet, and then when you do become successful. And there's nothing wrong with becoming successful, but I love what you said about being whole on your own first, finding your value without money attached to it first.
Exactly. Without any acclaim, without any degree, without any accolades. Find where you're happy, where it's not dependent on how other people are viewing you. And when you find that place, you will be the richest person in the world for the rest of your life when you find that. You know what I mean? Because then everything else is just a bonus to you instead of a burden to you. And then you're getting things for the right reasons instead of getting things for the wrong reasons. You're getting owned by your possessions instead of you owning your possessions. Your possessions now own you. And I think a lot of people are finding that out right now with this recession. It's a dark reality. They're realizing that they're not as rich as they thought they were. See, here's the thing that people don't realize is that most Americans, despite how much they make a year, are only 2 paychecks away from being homeless. It doesn't matter if they live in a $1.5 million home or they live in a $150,000 home. They are 2 paychecks away from being homeless.
Exactly.
And that's a reality. We're all living in a glass house. And I think we're seeing some of that starting to tumble down right now. We're starting to realize a few things. But, money's not everything. Money's not anything really other than an idea that we've all subscribed to. You know what I mean? And I think there's more valuable ideas that we could all get on the same page with other than a piece of paper or plastic has a monetary value,
Definitely.
So.
Definitely. Money does equal freedom in the world we live in, unfortunately. But like you said, people are living beyond their means, whether they have, like you said, a $1.5 million house or a $200,000 house. It's not even about how much they already have. It's about how far they're living beyond their means. And that's usually because, like you said, they want to have more because they think it increases their value. And I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm just saying, like, generally the society that we live in today is very much so like that. Not where I live, not in Serbia. It's a little different here.
Yeah.
But I am from New York, and that's, most people do live paycheck to paycheck, and they have mortgages and kids, and, But not to get to veer too much off topic, I want to keep on the spiritual journey that was triggered in you. Basically, I would say starting with kind of a breakdown of sorts about the life that you were living and what happened there, and how did you pull yourself out of it, and how did it trigger your spiritual awakening?
So knowledge of self. All knowledge is ultimately knowledge of self, but without knowledge of self, you're blind. Your perception is limited by your amount of knowledge. We can only perceive as much as we can understand, and how we understand things is through words. The way us humans in this particular era and time understand things is through words, association with words. So if you don't have the words for things, then you don't even see them. You know what I mean? You don't, unless you know what something's called, you just really don't see it. You know what I mean? So it's just like having knowledge. And there was some people around me at the time that were kicking some heavy knowledge. Like, I was learning a lot about African history that I never knew about, who blacks truly, like Africans or blacks, whatever you want to call, truly were, and what the true history of Africa was. I was learning like deep knowledge and, not like true history of not just what's in the history book, but like really what happened, and, getting into, religious texts and ancient texts. And, I was having like an awakening that way, but like, in terms of just knowledge, like my knowledge was growing. And then with knowledge of like self, I'm like, I can't perpetuate what I'm doing, knowing that I'm stronger than all this shit and that I'm caught up in something. But then like also just the esoteric side of it, the side that I can't explain, is I just started feeling it. Like I could feel it. I felt like my day was coming, man. Every day I felt like my day was coming, and it was scary. Because here's the thing, like, there was a person from home where I'm from that started doing the same thing that me and my friend were doing, and he got busted his first day. And it took him years and years. He's still dealing with the repercussions of that shit. So like, and then some people died. Some people never got busted, but they died in conflicts with other gangs or situations or whatever. So, I was like looking at it, like I was feeling that just any day could be my day. And every day that it wasn't my day, I got more and more nervous about the next day. Because I'm like, today went way too well. Tomorrow's got to be my day. So I started like just feeling like this, you know what I called it at the time? Impending sense of doom. I had an impending sense of doom. That's the feeling that I felt every day. That's the only way I could describe it to myself. Impending sense of doom. That's the way I was walking around feeling. And I think that was my spirit not allowing me to go any further. My spirit saying, listen, I'm literally going to fuck you up if you do not change. If you do not change, I will force you to change. You will not go on anymore. You will not have the energy in your body to go out there and do what you're doing any longer. And then I started losing weight. I started getting skinny as fuck. People probably thought I was on drugs, but I just couldn't eat. I just wasn't hungry. I was skinny as fuck. I was just stressed the fuck out. I just couldn't go any further. And like one day I just like collapsed on the floor, and I was just like fucked up. Like I was laying on the floor for like a day by myself, like literally like probably like 24 hours or more, just laying there. No blanket, like just literally just collapse on the floor where you're at and just lay there, like pissing myself, everything, like just laying there, and I couldn't get up off the floor. And I just felt like I had no more energy for anything, and I felt like I fucked everything up, and I couldn't come back. I was just like, man, I really got myself deep into some shit I don't understand. And I literally like had a conversation with whatever, I'm not here to push religion. I'm not a religious person. I believe one God, one world, one people. But I'm just saying whatever created me, whatever the common thread of consciousness is that connects all of us together, I got in touch with that, and I basically made a promise. And I said, look, if you get me up off this floor, you give me the energy to carry on, I'm going to get out of this situation, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to make it right. I'm going to do something to offer up something to make this right for what I took. And
so you were aware in that moment of needing to cleanse your karma, quite literally. And I
knew. I fucking knew. I knew bad. I was like, man, because when I stepped, like, because sometimes, like, when you're at work every day and you're just fulfilling your job, you become cold with your job. You're just doing the job. Then one day you like stop and you think like, wait a second, I'm a real person. These are real people. This isn't just transactions and money and numbers. Like, and you start like it. Yeah, I was definitely feeling that heavy, and no one else around me was. Like, I remember having conversations with people, and they would just like make me feel so stupid. And then I would realize that no one was like me that I was around. Like, they were really cut out for this shit because they weren't feeling the way I was feeling, and I was feeling like that. Like, I'd be like, man, like, do you ever think, like, you know, we're doing this and this? And they'd be like, man, what the fuck, bro? Like, if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, man. It's not our fault, bro. We never gave them their first smoke. We never gave them this and that. They're like, bro, if it's either us, if they're going to get it anyway, you might as well make your money. Like, people are just like, they weren't getting it. So I was like, wait a second. Like, I'm really in a different mind state than everybody else around me right now. Like, they couldn't even hear what I was saying. They're like, yo, you tripping? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you, bro? That guy's a fucking cuss you. Like, treat him like a fucking bucket. Like, who cares? Like, you know, they had a colder approach. They weren't looking, like, they become very desensitized. They're looking at drug addicts as not people, looking at them as a fucking, like a walking ATM that you just make fun of.
And, you know, and they probably were not meant to walk away with the type of lessons you did and to go on the spiritual journey that you did, which is what led you to what you're doing now. And that's the difference with some people. Some people literally stay stuck in the lower vibrational situation, whatever it is. Yours was extreme.
Yeah.
Not everybody's is as extreme. Some people, it's addiction. Yours was obviously gang affiliation and the type of, you know, world that you found yourself in. And some people use, you know, they move through that and they learn major lessons and they become better people, more aware people, more nurturing, more caring, you know, spiritually evolved. But not everybody does. And those are the people that stay in the lower vibrational mindset, some of them forever, unfortunately. So I think it's amazing that you were able to, like you said, have that conversation with your creator, whatever anybody wants to call that. It's creator, whoever created us, whoever created you. You were able to say, okay, I'm going to promise to obviously get out of this. And
which was selfish. It was very selfish to ask God to save me from my own bullshit, and I go back and make it right. It was a very selfish thing to ask, but
you were
you know, I was sincere. I was sincere about it. I felt like, you know, I can make, you know, just don't let this happen. Don't let this go. Don't let me go like dead and, you know, fucked up or just, you know, die from my own stress or, you know, like, just please, you know. Like,
well, I definitely want to get heavily into the spiritual journey you went on. But before that, let's talk about how hard it was to get out of this thing safely. Because we all know gangs are almost impossible to get out of.
Well, the guy that I got involved with, he didn't get out as safe as I did, you know, at all. So he made some bad decisions. He got involved in some, you know, lying and playing a little bit of games with money and shit. And he ended up narrowly getting out of there with his life. You know what I mean? So I already knew. And just from being around for a while, like, I knew what happened when you fuck around. You know what I mean? Like, there was real repercussion to this shit, and there's not nowhere you can run. You know what I mean? It's not like some shit you can just walk away from, give people the finger, and say fuck you, and it's all okay, game over. Like, so like, getting out for me was like me using my intelligence to find a way to like get out without offending anybody and without disrupting any financial flow into the organization. You know what I mean? So I basically just arranged a situation where anything that I would have been doing was being taken care of. And I even like trained, like the same way a manager would train like a assistant manager. Like, I trained people to do what I was doing. And then when I brought the proposal to leave, I did it at an opportune time too. I waited till the right time. I just didn't do it whenever I felt like it or whenever the pressure got too hot, I ran away. I did everything the right way. I didn't leave anybody in a precarious position. I didn't leave anybody fucked up. I didn't leave in the middle of the night. I faced everybody like a man. I faced everybody face to face. And I got out with a blessing, luckily. I'm one of the rare
Wow.
ones that got out with a blessing, and I feel very fortunate, and I feel very fortunate, too, for, don't get me wrong, everything that was done for me, and that, you know, there's a lot of good people in that world, trust me, like a lot of really good-hearted people, they're just involved in the wrong things, and there was a lot of amazing things that people, you know, a lot of bonds that are for life, you know what I mean, that people will never understand, you know what I mean, that's there. But yeah, I just had to get
Right.
it the right way. I did it the right way. Made sure everything. It's the same way. Okay, here's the thing. In life, no matter what you're doing, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to go about things. Even in the craziest situation, right, that you could be in, there's still a right way to go about that situation. You know what I mean?
I
And
agree.
no matter what you're doing, if you do things the right way, if you don't do things underhanded, if you come to people real, honest, with integrity, and you show people that you care, that you're not just trying to fuck around or play, you know, just take for you, and then when you want to leave, it's leave, you know what I mean? Like, then people are usually, they have to respect that. Like, people have to be real with themselves, and no matter what they say about you behind your back, no matter how convoluted things get in relationships, you know, with in groups of people, like, when people lay their head down at a pillow at night and they have to think about you when there's no one else around, they have to be real with themselves. They can't lie to themselves about who you are or, you know, your approach to things. So I just believe in doing things the right way, and I did that the right way.
Well,
And I
I
got
think it
out.
was important to you, especially after having that type of, awakening, let's say. First it was a crumbling and then it was an awakening. But you
Yeah,
also wanted to get out, but you wanted to make sure that you didn't harm anybody else on your way out and make sure you protected whoever you could and didn't mess up their system. So, yeah, I think that was probably all part of the awakening that you were having in the first place. But
definitely.
what can you tell us, and I don't know if you want to get into this, and I know it's in our film, but
Yeah.
how close were you to not getting out? Because something happened pretty much right at the end before you walking
Okay,
away.
yeah. So I'll tell that story. So
Okay.
the house that I was living in at the time, I was renting a basement, like, from, you know, a person in a very, like, normal, quiet, friendly area. And this person that I was renting from obviously had no idea the type of lifestyle that I was living, nothing like that. They thought we worked shift work at a factory, blah, 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 whatever. And one day, like, we were all, me and my boy, who, like, my right-hand man, shout out to him, he knows who he is. I love that guy, man. But me and him always used to sit on the side of the house when he would come drop me off my car. We would always smoke weed in this, like, spot and just sit there, kind of politic, just smoke weed. He'd tell me what happened the night before, how much money he made, blah, 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 blah. And one day I came home and my whole house, like, I drove down my street and my whole house was police taped off. And there was gang unit, there was homicide unit, like, everything was surrounding my house. And I was like, whoa. And I thought it was over for me. My first reaction was they got me.
For sure.
I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this is a raid. I'm done.
Yeah.
So I took a quick spin around the block, and I had to, like, face the music. I spun around the block, and I was like, yo, do I run or do I just go face the music? And I was too tired to run. I was just like, fuck it, man. You know, I got myself
You're like, I'll
into
turn
it. I'm gonna
myself
go
in.
fucking. Yeah, I'll go face the
Uh-huh.
music. Like, if this is what it is, I'm not going to prolong it, right? So I was just like, fuck it. So I went, pulled up, got out, knocked on the window of the officer that was close to where I parked, and he, like, looks at me weird, and I, like, made the motion for him to, like, roll the window down. He rolled the window down, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm Andrew. And he's like, okay, nice to meet you. And he kind of, like, acted, like, ignorant almost, like, and just, like, turned, like, ignored me, kept doing what he was doing. And I was like, no, I live here. And I'm waiting for him to, like, jump out the car and, like, grab me and shit. He's like, oh. He's like, okay, well, if you go take off to, like, go grab a bite or something, we should be done here in, like, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll be all out of here and shit like that. I'm like, wait a second. In
You're
my
like,
brain, I'm
what?
expecting, like, I'm expecting to get arrested or so. I was like, the fuck? So I was like, yo.
Yeah.
I was like, what happened? He's like, oh, because I'm scared because I'm thinking, like, I have the people I'm renting from upstairs. Maybe someone came for me, and they got in the way. And you know what I mean? I was fucking scared of a lot of shit when I seen homicide and all that shit. My house was taped off. I was scared of a lot of shit. I thought I was the reason why something really bad happened to somebody, or something bad was happening to me. I just didn't know. So I was like, yo, like, what's going on? He's like, there was a double homicide beside the house. 2 young people got shot in a car beside the house. And I just had like a cold chill down my spine. And I immediately imagined me and my right-hand man sitting there all the time. And I lived far away from anything that I was doing. Like, I was living in a very different area, far, far away from, you know, don't shit where you eat type thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it was like shocking to me. And that area didn't have any problems. So at that moment, I took it as that was meant for us, potentially. I don't know to this day.
Right, because you were parked there with your partner all the time.
All the time, right? Maybe someone got the drop on that, and then 2 young guys just happened to be sitting there doing the same shit and wrong place at the wrong time. Or it had nothing to do with me at all. You know, it was coincidence.
Weren't they college students who were not involved in any type of crime, right? That's what was so shocking about it.
I remember reading that in the paper that they weren't, like, they didn't have any attachment to anything or, you know, I remember reading that. I didn't read, you know, because my house was on the front page of the newspaper the next day. But, I don't remember exactly, but I was just thinking in my head, okay, that could have been for me. That could be, you know what I mean? And also, it just, even if it wasn't for me, it was just something happens like that in your life that literally that close to home. Like, people use that phrase, like, close to home, but that was literally close to home. I was like, you know what? I need to move quick. I need to, like, make my move quick. Like, it's closing in. I could feel it, man. It's like death and, like, destruction was around the corner. And they weren't one thing. It was like death was one thing that was around the corner, and destruction of my life, of everything, with the, like, what could have happened if I got caught up in some shit. That was lurking around the corner. So I had, like, 2 monsters chasing me around every corner.
Oh, my God. Unreal. So so you finally did get out, right? And I think you had the help of your girlfriend too, right? She was very supportive, and, you know.
Oh yeah, of course. We made that. You know, we got, that was another thing too. Like, you know, I was worried about even, like, stuff with her at that time. Like, I was worried maybe they would look at her as the problem because I did change when she came around, and people caught that play. I didn't want anything to happen to her. I don't know. You know, I was just really worried. But, I got out with, like, that support. And, and then I made my way out of that life.
You made your way out. Okay, and then, so you made your way out of that life, and then did you move right away? And where'd you go?
I moved right away. I went right back home to Nova Scotia, and then I left there, and I was home for like a month, maybe, again, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't be back here. I was actually supposed to go to school. I was supposed to get into a program at Nova Scotia Community College at the time, and my mother knew the person that was doing the admin for the program, and even though it was late, he promised that he could get me in, or apparently. She might have just lied to get me home because she knew something wasn't right. She was feeling it, motherly intuition.
Yeah.
But either way, I came home because this was the end of the summer, like, because the crazy thing is when I stopped selling dope, I actually worked at UPS for like 2-3 months, delivering packages. I know it's kind of funny, but like,
another delivery service.
And then I left,
Okay.
I just figured, hey, I was in the delivery business. I knew the city. You know, it made sense.
True.
There's no boss over my shoulder. I wasn't sitting down anywhere. I got to drive. You know what I mean? It was the closest thing that I could. And they were hot. They needed people so bad. They were literally bringing people in from Toronto to drive at the time, putting them up in hotels and shit. So, but I did that for a bit. I just realized, like, fuck, I can't be living like this. And plus, it was hard. I was used to making all this money. I was used to living a crazy lifestyle. And all of a sudden, I'm working every day. I'm wearing little brown shorts and shit. People, like, all my friends out there are making fun of me. All the guys that sell dope are like, you know, I'm going to hang out with them after work to smoke weed, and I'm coming in a little brown outfit, and they're like, they can't believe it. They're like, yo, I can't believe this guy went legit. Like, I can't believe it. And I just became like the joke kind of thing. But then I realized I couldn't still hang out with these guys and like just work at UPS and act like everything was all good, like still just being around them, period. Like just because I wasn't doing what I was doing every day, I just couldn't be around. So that's what forced me to move home. Went home for like a month, realized I couldn't be there. Then I moved to Ontario, and that's when I really started facing the reality. Because another thing that during this whole time of me selling dope is like I had the aspiration to rap, you know, and I know it sounds so cliche, like, oh, this guy is like, he wants to be a rapper and he sounds like, it sounds so whack even to me when I say it, but I did have the aspiration to rap at the time, and that's all we did constantly every day. When we were just hanging out with each other, was just freestyling every single day, rap. So like, I decided then that when I left UPS, I was like, yo, there's no way I'm just going to go live a fucking regular ass life, but I'm not willing to live a life of crime either. I was like, so what's like the next best thing? And I was like, well, entertainment, you know. So then I moved to Ontario to pursue entertainment. I wanted to be in the movies. I wanted to make music. I wanted to do anything creative, you know. I just had a lot of ambition I just wanted the entertainment industry. I didn't care what it was, modeling, whatever. I was just like, fuck it. I just wanted to immerse myself in that world.
That's amazing, but I think that that's a really common scenario when a person has a spiritual awakening. They really get in touch even more so than ever with their creativity. So, you know, and you were already super creative because it takes a lot of talent to rap. Let's be real, you know, and anything in the entertainment world, just it's, you know, all creative. And like you said, a lot of creative people, they just want to do creative things all over all over the board. If it's creative, it's fulfilling to them. And plus, the act of creating itself is its own beast, let's call it. But let's go back a little. It is. And I just want to go back a little to once you got out, and obviously you had that type of connection to your creator, let's say, or just that source of life, right, of creation. What was that like? How was it a process? Was it something that hit you like boom, like wow, I got to change my life? And we know that there was that to a certain extent. But what type of process did you go through, and what type of learning were you doing? Like what type of self-education while you were on that spiritual journey?
Oh man, I was self-help books. Just self-help books. I go to the chapters constantly, go down the self-help aisle, and any title that like seemed like it was a problem I was dealing with, I just go take it in, read the book. Like I knew I needed to learn. Like everything was telling me you have to learn. You don't know anything. Like you don't have any knowledge. You need to learn. You need to learn. I just started digesting books, reading a lot of different books, and like even some stuff as simple as how to network. Like that sounds so simple now. Like when I think about now, like I can't imagine reading a book now called How to Network. Like fuck. Like you know what I mean? It's laughable now, but at the time, it was like holy fuck. I had no idea.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I didn't even know what networking was. You know what I mean? So it was just like it was that process of just like, you know, learning. How in the fuck do you, like I was trying to get good at life. I was like, what skills do I need to be good at life? And I knew I needed to learn how to get my mouth open. I need to learn how to talk to people because I knew that every single person is like a fucking road. You know what I mean? That once you know them, it's like you get on a path that you would have never been on from knowing them. So like every connection you make is like so valuable, and I just wasn't making connections. I wasn't social enough. And then being like around gang shit and all that shit made me even more less social. Made me even more fucking, and then dealing with drug addicts all the time too, and like I'd had to relearn how to talk to regular folks, like, and how not to be like a fucking pushy drill sergeant with people, and like talk, like I had to learn emotional intelligence, like reading Maya Angelou.
Wow.
I had to learn everything. I had to learn how to be a real person, man. How to fucking like perceive the world around me correctly. How to like speak. How to, you know, how to deal with feelings of anxiety. How to deal with feelings of doubt. Like just everything that I was dealing with, I just tried to find some information on how I could get a little bit better at it. Started reading The Art of War. Started reading The Laws of Power. Started taking in just different information, you know, that other people that I perceived as being successful were taking in. Like, that was the main thing, is looking at people that I admired, finding out what they were reading and what was in their libraries and trying to take it in. You know what I mean?
I find that so impressive and phenomenal. I can't even hide it. Like, I just want to say, like, you know how many people don't know or don't want to know what they don't know? But you knew instinctively or spiritually what you didn't know and that you needed to know those things. So that, to me, really boils down to being aware that you needed to develop your emotional intelligence, because I feel like that's the root of it, just like you said. So
yeah, definitely.
That's amazing that you were literally on a journey to become emotionally intelligent, because that is literally the base of probably any relationship, is being emotionally intelligent enough to interact, to be able to feel people out, to be able to get your point across, or even be persuasive, because you have to be emotionally intelligent enough to read people and to also understand yourself, right? Like, how can other people understand you
if you don't understand you?
If you don't understand yourself. So I just love that you touched on that topic. And then, of course, I'm sure the more you research, the more you read, it leads to more questions and more knowledge. And it just
greater perception, right? So now you're seeing things you weren't seeing before. You're noticing things you weren't noticing before. You're starting to learn, because it's only fear of the unknown that creates anxiety or creates, like, fear, right? Is the unknown. It's what we don't know. But when you learn how to be comfortable adjusting to unknowns and feeling comfortable with, you know, things that can kind of, you know, it was just me being scared before. A lot of it was losing fear, too. You know, a book that I read that's a very underrated book that I think people should read, but a Muslim will probably never read it because of the association, and it's The 50th Law by Robert Greene. And it's 50 Cent and Robert Greene wrote this book together, and that's why most people will never read it, because they'll just be like, oh, it's a 50 Cent book. But, man, people should read that book, man, because there's a Latin quote that is like the basis of that book, and it's nihil timendum est, which is fear nothing. Is it?
Wow.
Nihil. I think that's what it is. Anyway, don't quote me on that. But anyway, in English, it's fear nothing. That is the whole. So what Robert Greene does is he takes you through the book, showing you different parts of 50 Cent's life, and showing that if he had been scared at that time, he would have never made it to who he was today. Even though that the fear and the threat was real, he still had to act without fear, or else he would have been destroyed anyway. So it's like you have nothing to lose by going into intimidating situations fearless, not foolish, not ignorant of the dangers that are in front of you, but not worried or fearful of the outcome, having faith. Basically, it boils down to faith, but they explain it in more of a scientific way. So, yeah, if anybody checks that out, 50th Law, Robert Greene, 50 Cent, and that was a big revolution for me, too, because I realized I was just fucking scared. I was scared to talk to people. What was I scared of? Was I scared? You know, I realized that the things that I was scared of were so simple. Here's a guy that wasn't scared to go and put it all on the line, doing what we talked about earlier, but here I am scared to just walk up in a store and ask somebody if they can, you know, get me a size 32, you know? So I had to really, like, understand that fear is not exactly the way that it's always portrayed in films and the way that we learn to, like, associate it. There's a lot of everyday fears people have that hold them back, and a lot of them are based on social interaction and fear of what's going to happen within that interaction. So I felt like that was like the place that was the most important to work on, was like, how do you walk up to somebody and not be scared of anything and just still be able to communicate with them, and even if it goes left, be able to, like, gracefully move away from that situation before you sink the ship.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because in the streets, they don't do that. You just do what the fuck you're told, or else something bad's going to happen. You can't treat people like that in real life, you know what I mean?
Of course. Absolutely. And you were such a young person, a young adult when you got involved with the gang stuff. So it's almost like you pretty much went from high school, you were in South Korea, and then pretty much right away you were out west.
I went to university for a year too, by the way, in between high school and South Korea. There was a year at Dalhousie University in Halifax. I actually went there on scholarship. But yeah, so I tasted a little bit of university too, you know. But yeah, like you said, you know, I did all that shit and.
But you're still so your like interactions, let's say, were still not. You knew that your human interaction wasn't developed enough to the point where you wanted it to be. So it's amazing that was part
Not
of
at
your.
all.
Yeah.
And it kept me away
journey.
from things that were for me. You know, like that's why I brought up the university thing, because that was a big part of why I didn't last in university. It's because I was it was too socially anxious for me. There was too many people. The auditorium was full of people. I was scared to fucking death. Like and man, people couldn't understand it. I tried to talk to people about it. They're like, man, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? You're not shy. That's all they say to me. Like, man, I don't get it.
That's
like,
social anxiety.
Yeah, I had social anxiety like a motherfucker, and I didn't even understand what was going on.
Yeah, because people don't think a lot of people have it who do have it. It's something we feel and we don't always show. Sometimes people think the most social people are the people who would never have that, but it couldn't be more untrue. A lot of the time, people who appear to be really social, they deep down have major social anxiety. So some people hide it well, you know, but let's go back for a sec to the damages that you feel were done from all of the traumatic things you saw while participating in this gang. So at what point did you start losing your eyesight? Let's get to that.
Okay, so after living in Toronto for 3, 4, 5, just 1 second, 8, 9, 10, 11. After living in Toronto for like 3 years, I woke up one day and my eye was red. By the way, everything was working out beautifully in Toronto. I was in the movies. I've been in Hollywood movies. I was in a bunch of television shows. I did background work. I did special skills work. I was auditioning for commercials, and I was like, I was on a show for Discovery called Prank Science, where I was just all these amazing things. I was doing modeling. All this shit's working out beautifully. You know, now that I've learned all my little lessons from my books and I'm becoming social and learning how to become part of, you know, regular society. And I woke up one day, I was red. I went to the doctor, and the doctor was just like, look, you need to get to an emergency, like ASAP, because there's so much pressure in your eye right now. Like, you're literally about to lose your eye. Your eye's going to explode. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I thought maybe, like, I touched, like, a fucking, you know, something in the elevator. I lived in a fucking high-rise at the time, so I think there's a lot of people. I'm in the elevator. Maybe I touched the railing or the button, touched my eye, got something in my eye. Like, I don't know. I was just, that's all I could think, but I never had problems like that, so it was weird to me. And when he told me that, it just scared the living fuck out of me. And I was just like, I got to get to the emergency. I went there, and just a nightmare started from there, where that day was like the beginning of an inflammation condition that still exists to this day, but I just have it way more managed and, like, have been through a lot since then. And I have my life into, like, a fairly normal space now, other than constantly getting anti-inflammatories, you know, injected in my eyes. But yeah, at that time it was just crazy. Like, I had to go on high doses of corticosteroids right away to subside the inflammation. They didn't know what was going on. It took months and months and months to figure out what was going on. And
wow, that's intense. So did you relate that to anything that you had gone through or been through or seen? Like, did you feel instinctively that it was something spiritual or emotional? Okay, let's hear about that.
I fucking knew it. I knew it. Wow. I fucking knew it, man. I got myself sick being that worried. I knew it too. Like, you know, like, and don't get me wrong, right? I'm not discrediting, you know, medical professionals, because you know, if you ask me, I'll give you their version as well of what happened to me. But I'm just saying, my instinct was I made myself sick. I stressed myself out way too hard. I lived a lifestyle of hypervigilance where I was constantly, it'd be like someone going to war and then coming back. you're just like, I was shell shocked. Like I was just like, holy fuck, like I'd seen some fucked up shit. You know what I mean? I was like around different, you know what I mean? Like scared, like I don't know,
For
man.
sure.
It was just different. Like it
Trauma.
was weird. Like even, yeah, even, you know what I mean? Having a gun, having all these like these destructive things around me that just made me feel fucked up, that would just like play on my mind. I just think about them all the time, and having things on me all the time that would give me automatic time in jail, it just stressed me right the fuck out to the core. And also feeling like awful about what I did spiritually, like in the world, like taking advantage of people like the way I did in terms of the money that was made off, you know, I just felt so awful. It just sucked the soul out of me, and I never could get right. And I was hiding it from people. Like I wasn't letting anybody know that I was going crazy, but I was going crazy for the years after I left that situation in Alberta. I was definitely going crazy all the time, and I was trying to hold it together and act normal. And I was doing a really good job, but man, I was fucking going crazy. And then I started having crazy anxiety, like to the point where I was like, you know, like felt like I couldn't live, you know?
Wow.
And then finally my system broke down. I literally like here's my take on things, by the way. I believe that we're all to certain things, yes, but it doesn't mean that we're going to get them. And I think that there's triggers environmentally, like there's a bunch of different, there's more than just environmental triggers, but there's triggers that will make our immune system, put pressure on our immune system, right? Because when we're sick and when we're stressed out, or I should say when we're stressed, it affects our immune system and it makes us sick. That's just a fact, right? So I think like I just put so much pressure on my immune system that it had to break, and where I was genetically weak happened to be in my eyes. You know what I mean? So that's why I have this inflammation condition that's not affecting anything else. It's just affecting my eyes. But I think it was just because I literally broke my immune system with the amount of stress, and I couldn't feel good. It took years and years. I couldn't get right. Like I was trying to get right. I couldn't get right. It felt awful. I felt fucked up.
I feel like, yeah, you know what? Like you were just saying, the shock almost of that lifestyle and all the things you saw and the trauma of all of that, you don't realize sometimes at the time how it's affecting you. It's the perfect example of post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, people go through major...
That's what I had.
Yes, and that's what it sounds like to me. And we haven't actually gone this deep into that topic, you and I, even though we've talked many times working on the script. But I just wanted to say, like, for me, I feel like the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, when a person is unhealed, can exactly manifest like it did for you, like blindness, sickness, all different types of things, you know, chronic illnesses, inflammation.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say for you?
No, I was just going to say for me, too, I felt like on a spiritual level, and, like, this is just purely spiritual. Like, people are either going to feel this or they're not. But I felt like I was literally being so blind in the physical that my actual eyesight was taken away from me as, like, a symbolism of how blind. And the thing is like, I have bluish-green eyes, and my whole life, people have always commented that I have nice eyes my whole life, ever since I've been a child. That's the number one compliment that I've been paid my whole life, is you have nice eyes. And I felt like it was funny, the thing that was my ultimate thing that everybody admired about me the most, and was the thing that was my biggest downfall. And I felt like that God only gave me those eyes as a test to see if I could look past what I was seeing with those eyes, and I wasn't able to. So God took them away from me. And then when he took them away from me, then shit got real clear. Even though the vision was gone, the picture got real clear. You know, and that's just on a spiritual level. That's not science, and that's just how I feel. That's what I feel happened to me. You know, and I feel like when I get all the way right one day, I won't have this inflammation condition. But I'm almost there. But I still have a little bit of work to do.
That's amazing. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to say, yeah, I think that we know our bodies the best. We can feel when like your instinct and your intuition and your gut feeling is that your blindness and the deterioration of your vision was due to the post-traumatic stress of the life that you were living and all of the traumatic things that you saw. So if that's how you feel, I feel like that's how you know. Because the doctors can only tell you what physically went wrong, but they can't tell you what spiritually went wrong. Only we can know that.
Or how it happened. Why did that even happen? Like, just because I have this condition, what triggered it? They can't tell you that. But I know what triggered it, man. And here's the thing. This is for everybody listening or everybody that's going to listen. You get right in your life. You stop doing things that take away from your vitality. What a sin is a sin is not just a religious concept that was put there to scare you. In terms of just like the basic sins out there, like the deadly sins, like the only reason it's a sin is because it takes away from your vitality. Anything that takes away from your energy is taking away from your life force. So anything that we do that takes away energy instead of adding energy is automatically a sin. So just get right with yourself and do right, and don't do things that weigh on your conscience, and don't do things that because those things manifest themselves into physical problems. And a lot of people don't think about it like that, but it's the truth. Every illness, and some people are going to hate me for this, and they're going to spite me for this because they're going to say, well, you think my, cousin deserved to die of cancer? I'm not saying that, but we are all responsible for our own sicknesses. None of us are just getting sick for no reason at all. When we allow our life energy to be lessened, our vibration to be lowered, we leave ourselves open for lower vibrational things like sickness. You know what I mean? So if you keep your life force high, and if you don't live a complicated life and you don't do things that take away from your vitality, the chances of you getting sicker get smaller and smaller and smaller because you're in a vibration that doesn't even allow that energy to kind of attach itself to it. But when you start getting out of balance with your lifestyle and you start doing things that have spiritual implications on you, that is when you are going to get sick. And it's going to manifest itself physically, and the doctor will never tell you this. So
brilliant.
Get right in your life, because it's going to catch up with you.
So insightful, and I'm like, it's so important for people to hear that. And absolutely, like you're responsible for your own energy, and the things that you do affect your energy field, like you said, and your consciousness. So it's crazy because this was one of my questions for you, and you pretty much just answered it. But I'm going to ask you anyway if there's any more info that you might be able to give us. So at this stage of your evolution, and we know that you've rapidly evolved since the gang stuff and then the blindness and just all of it, right? You rapidly started learning, educating yourself, raising your vibration, your spiritual knowledge, your spiritual work on yourself. So how interconnected do you see your body, your mind, and your spirit, and how important is the health of all three simultaneously?
Oh, it's everything. You can't have one without the other. It's the Trinity. It's everything. Everything. That's why 3 is such an important number, and it's reflected in different religious ways. Like in the Christian religion, it's the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. It's the mind, body, and the spirit. It's the this grouping of 3 is so important, and to have one without the other, it's never going to work. You have to be complete to be healthy. If you are not complete physically, you're not healthy. If you're not complete mentally, you're not healthy. And if your spirit is not complete, you're not healthy if you're healthy physically. And most times you just won't be, because your body is unless you're on drugs. And there's a lot of people that are on drugs, and they have you just thinking that they're in this amazing shape, and you just think, why is that person so? But they're on drugs, like, you know what I mean? I've been around sports and athletics for a long time. There's only so much potentiality your physical can reach without the help of enhancements, right? But I mean, like, usually your body follows your mind. That's why we admire people that are in shape, because when we see them and they're in shape, we know how much dedication and how much work it takes to walk around in that shape. How many times you have to say no to the cheeseburger, the Cheetos, the soda, the late night pizzas. You know what I mean? Like, we know. So when we
course.
look at them, we admire them because their body is a reflection of their mind. When we see somebody that's just a slob, we have to assume that upstairs that they're a slob too, that they're not, their mind's not kept, they're not disciplined, they're not, you know what I mean? They're not
Right.
moving in the right direction. And it's not a judgment based on physical. There is
No.
a real connection. And when you see people that are looking good and they're glowing, it's usually because they're looking good and glowing upstairs too. And they're really
That's right.
comfortable with themselves. Like, what we perceive as beauty can be physically altered. Like,
Yeah.
the way you perceive somebody in the physical can change based on their vibration. Their vibration can make
Definitely.
them look like 10 times more attractive than they are. And you will see something that you just can't explain. You're just like, that person is just awesome. Like, just a great person. Like, you just feel good when you see them, man. Like, I love their smile. You don't even know what to say about it. But what it is just a high vibration. And those people are attractive. And people that have a low vibration are not attractive. So, mind,
Absolutely.
body, and spirit, everything feeds into where there's a healthy mind, there's a healthy body. And where there's a healthy body and mind, there's usually a healthy spirit, But if you take out any of those equations, you've now taken away a chain or a link in a chain that, it just can't be. You've now broken something that was strong before, So
Right.
it's everything.
Yep.
And people that are spiritually, I know a lot of people are atheists, right? And I see that the problems that those people have in their lives that they can't see because they don't believe in anything. I see the unhappiness it brings them. Like, let's
agree.
lay out a scenario for a second. Let's just say this,
Okay.
right? Is it better to have faith or not have faith, right? Is it better to walk around scared? Better to walk around like, okay, let's just say God does not exist. Let's just say, like, let's look from the atheist point of view. Let's just say the concept of God does not exist, right? Is it better to walk around in a world feeling like there's no one that cares truly and that this is all fucking pointless and that you're just the fucking makings of some primordial soup that came together on the right day at the right time, it was the right temperature, and all of a sudden a little thing popped up and it turned into another thing, and then somewhere down the chain you pop up and you're just here just to go to work every day, make some money, come home, eat, go enjoy, desires of the flesh, and just go to sleep and to feel like it's worth nothing. It doesn't matter. When you die, you just die. Or is it better to walk around and feel like there's a plan, there's a greater purpose for all the suffering that you're going through? Let's just say, like, just being a man of logic, right? One would put you in a bad mood and one will put you in a good mood. So even if you don't know what to believe, you're better off believing in God. Because at least if you believe in God, at least you can lie to yourself. And what you believe, you become. So now you've tricked your mind, even if you don't believe that there is something that cares, that there is a reason, and now you see the reason for going through the bullshit you go through instead of being spited or feeling spited every single time you have a bump in your road. Now you look at bumps in the road like a challenge that you're made to overcome.
And that is part of your evolution.
Challenge.
Right, and that's
part of your evolution. How can you evolve without going through the process of evolving? Mario, when you played Mario and for the first time you played Nintendo, what would Mario be if he just ran straight? You just hit the button and Mario just right through every level.
Right.
You got to have obstacles. You got to jump over some shit, have some shit flying at you, duck under some shit, pop some. You know what I mean? Like, you got to do some shit. Or else it's just not worth it. We like it. We don't like anything that's not challenging. Anything that's not challenging, we'll soon fucking get rid of as humans.
Yes.
So we like to be challenged. Not in every way, but in a certain way, we all like to be challenged.
I think that we subconsciously seek out certain challenges or put ourselves in certain challenging situations subconsciously, on a subconscious level. I'm not talking about like, hey, I'm going to fuck up my life right now. I'm talking about, we put ourselves in challenging situations that we know are going to stimulate and propel our evolution and our growth. I've done it to myself. Yeah, I've done it to myself and put myself in really challenging situations, including moving to Serbia. And looking back, I can see why I did it, but I didn't know at the time. It's like an instinctive, conscious level challenge for me in my life to open my eyes up to people who don't have as much as the average American, or who just live with a different mentality. You know what I mean? So I'm totally with you on that. I think that's amazing. And I also was just having a conversation with a friend today, and we were discussing how, being on a podcast, for example, or a radio show, it's like some people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to share this or that. I'm like, well, that's your choice. You don't have to share by your name. But for me, it's like, I'm not ashamed to say that I've made certain mistakes in my life, or I've gone down unhealthy paths, or even self-destructive ones, because I'm where I'm at right now because of those things. And I don't give a shit who's judging me, because they have their own problems.
You know better.
Right?
You know better.
This is my journey. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of even the mistakes I've made, even though, I'm not proud of, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with them because I use
You're proud
them
of the
for
fact
my
that you
growth.
evolved from those mistakes. You evolved from those mistakes. You didn't let those mistakes define you and get caught up in a cycle of repetition. You know what I mean? Psychotic behavior where you just keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over and over and over, and you just hate yourself for it. You've evolved past those mistakes. It's not the process of learning is the process of failing. And if we would approach learning more like that, even in the school system, if we would teach that you have to fail a certain amount of times before you succeed, and that it's just part of succeeding instead of this one-off, like, no, you just have to get everything right away or you're stupid, then we would be a lot better off, because I never met anybody. And I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm willing to eat my words, but I never met anybody that got on a bike for the first time and just peeled right off without the training wheels on and was just wheeling up the road and doing their thing. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of kids scrape their knees. I've seen a lot of kids bang their head and scrape their knuckles and elbows and break things and whatever to learn how to ride that bike. And anything like that, anything that we do, we have to fail a certain amount of times in order to learn how to do it. That is the process of learning. I always say the sum of your failures will be equal to the total of your success. That's like my quote.
I love that.
The sum of your failures will equal the total of your success.
The perfect example one of the most perfect examples I've ever heard of exactly what you're saying is a baby learning how to walk. You know what I mean? Like, it starts from day one. You fall down, you get back up. You fall down, you get back up. Does the baby say, you know what? I'm just not going to walk. I'm just going to crawl forever because this shit isn't working out.
What's wrong with me? I failed the first time I tried to do it. I fucking couldn't do it. Now everybody thinks I'm stupid. I'll never walk again. Like, no. That's how adults act.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's funny, though, right? But it's such a great example of what you're saying. So that brings me to another amazing point. Now, I'm definitely going to get into your music career because that's definitely a major, major highlight. But your spiritual journey, I feel like it connected you to martial arts for a reason, because it's all about art, discipline, movement. It's a body, mind, soul, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
there you go.
Yeah. Tell us about that. Like, how did that come to play in your life? Was that later, or were you always interested in that?
I was always interested in combat, unarmed combat. I was always kind of like a scrappy guy when I was younger. Like, I wasn't scared to get in a fist fight. I wasn't scared to drop the gloves playing sports and stuff like that and just mix it up. Like, I wasn't afraid of that energy. And then I also did a little bit of kickboxing when I was younger. I did a little bit of boxing when I was younger. And I also took Taekwondo for a while when I was younger as well. And I learned like a traditional martial art. And that had an effect on me. But when I was going to the worst point of me, so I went blind for 5 years. And towards the end of that 5 years, like I'm still legally blind, by the way, but that's another thing a lot of people don't know about me is I'm actually legally blind, but people can't notice it because of how I move. They don't get it, but I've had to learn to compensate for a lot.
Wow.
But when I started going through the worst part of that 5-year stretch where things were like very difficult before I had my surgeries that gave me back a lot of my eyesight, I was so depressed and I was so suicidal and just I felt so shitty inside and I felt so awful that I knew that the only thing that I could do to get back would just be to get into the vibration of what I used to enjoy before the world got complicated. Like, before I complicated my world, what did I enjoy? Like when there was no pressure, when there was no stress, what did I like to do? So I started really thinking back to my childhood and thinking about the things that I would just do that didn't have any, I wasn't doing because somebody was watching. I wasn't doing because somebody wanted me to do. Just the things I would naturally do on my own that I enjoyed. And martial arts was always one of them. And I was just like, you know what? It didn't make sense to me, but I was like, I got to do martial arts. So my cousin was actually going to an MMA gym at the time. And she was like, because she seen me doing martial arts on the internet and shit like that a little bit, you know what I mean? Boxing at the gym, like just hitting the bag at the gym and stuff. She's like, yo, you should come in, blah, 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 blah. And I was scared because I couldn't see much and I hadn't done anything.
Wow.
Like, it was very nerve-wracking. And I went into this MMA class and I ended up sticking around for 2 years. And I just, like, I would train like 2-3 times a day for like 2 years straight. And then I got my eyesight back, like, I think like a year into me training. I got my eyesight back because I had these 2 major surgeries. They gave me new lenses in both eyes. And then after that, yeah, it was on. So I'd already learned martial arts, not being able to see. I used to take private classes. I would go to the group class too, you know, sometimes when my eyes were a little better than other times. But the majority of my training was literally done one-on-one with a pro boxer and a pro MMA fighter. And like he was a current pro, like simultaneous. And he was training me on the side. I was paying him money to just train me straight up on the side. He needed the money, and I needed the one-on-one. So I got really good really quick, and I'm naturally athletic. So people at the gym, they would just see me training with this guy, and they just thought I was some up-and-coming fighter training with this guy. They didn't even realize I was blind. And then when I got my eyesight back and I started sparring, I started kicking the shit out of people, and I started realizing I was the real fucking deal. You know what I mean? I wasn't playing games, and they were amazed because they knew I had eye problems. So I started beating up professional fighters, and I was legally blind. I just got my eyesight back a few months. And then I fought twice in Michigan. In Detroit, I fought in an amateur underground fight called a smoker. I fought twice. I won the first one, and then the second fight was against the state champion of Michigan, and I lost that fight. But yeah, I competed like 3 or 4 months after I got my eyesight back right away. And then I had plans on competing more in bigger events, but I basically got like hated on because at first I was like the charity case. Everybody's just like inspired, like, oh man, you know, it's so good. Andrew comes in here, he does his thing, man. Like, fuck, you know, we got to work harder, man. He's doing it. Then when I started kicking people's ass, I was like, yo, fuck this guy, man. He's got a better story than us, better marketing. You know what I mean? I look better, like all that shit. You know what I mean? I just had like in terms of the business side of it, I looked like they could sell some fights with my name attached to it. So people started fucking hating on me. Started trying to they took the opposite road. They should have been happy for me. And I got my sight back. That's the way I would have expected it. But they started playing games with me and started getting threatened by me. You know, because I was ambitious. As soon as I could see again, I was ready to take everything and everything. It just so happened I was focused on martial arts at the time. So as soon as I got my eyes back, I didn't even think about doing anything else other than martial arts. And then people didn't understand that either. Like, why would you do this? Like, you just got your sight back and you compare, like, you're legally blind. Like, you got grown-ass men that are very, like, killers trying to get you. Like, what would make you want to do this? But I just knew in my soul I had to. And, like, me doing that, it gave me, like, a certain glow. And I used that glow and that energy to, like, start a music situation. And then that just worked out. I effortlessly transitioned from doing the martial arts into music. Once the martial arts, I hit resistance. People started, like, hating on me in the gym, started trying to create shit. All this shit was going on. I just took that as a sign. It was time to move in a different direction. I effortlessly moved right into a music situation. Went down to Nova Scotia, Cup demos. People in Toronto heard it, started messaging me like, yo, as soon as you get back to Toronto, fucking hook up with me. I just heard your shit. You're crazy, blah, blah, blah. All these people I wanted to work with started reaching out. And then since then, I've just been, doing my thing.
So how would you say then, like, your spiritual journey directly pretty much gave you the confidence to attack your career, essentially, aside from the fact that you were already doing martial arts, which I think it just puts you so in touch with your body, mind, and soul, because that's what you're training for, right? And the discipline that it takes to practice that. So how did that influence the start of your music career exactly?
Well, it influenced it because I don't even know if it influenced it. It just, like, what it was is like, okay, so I always planned on doing the music thing, right? It was just that, like I said, when I reached my darkest point of my eyesight, I realized I had to go do something to get some dignity back and then just get out of the house. I had to do something. So I started doing MMA. But it just, like, when I got my eyesight back, like, here's the thing. I wasn't expecting to get my eyesight back. Like, I'd already been 5 years. They told me my eyes were inoperable. Then after I got healthier doing martial arts, they started telling me my eyes were getting better and better. Then they could operate. I could take a chance, but I only had a 30% chance of success in each eye. And my surgeon, shout out to her, Dr. Bakshi, she did her thing. And I rolled the dice twice with her, and I came out on top both times. So, like, I can never give enough thanks to Dr. Bakshi. I love you. She does the most for me. She's my current eye doctor. She's literally my day-to-day eye doctor and my surgeon. She makes it so I can live the life that I'm living right now. Shout out to her. But, yeah, like, as soon as I got, like, my eyesight back, like, I was so happy that I could just do what everybody else was doing because, man, there was days I walked out of the MMA gym crying like a child. I was crying because I couldn't do what everybody else was doing. Like, we'd do the class, and then I'd see everybody starting to spar, and I would just look at everybody sparring, and I'd be like, fuck. And I'd be like, realize that I wasn't the man I used to be. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I was actually disabled. Like, what the fuck? This is crazy. And I was feeling better than ever, but there was still like, fuck, I still can't do everything. So as soon as I could do shit, I was like off to the races. Like, I was training. I was probably the hardest working mixed martial artist in the fucking planet, man. Anybody that was around me at that time can attest to that shit. I was training harder than guys in the UFC are training. Trust me, I was fucking doing everything. Even to this day, I still train probably harder than most fighters, most pro fighters.
Because you appreciated it more on a level that,
oh my God,
you know, like you were taken away
from you.
You
have no idea. You have no idea. I was so fucking excited to be able to do shit. I was just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm doing as much as, like, my motivation level was so high. But that's the thing. I didn't even think, wait a sec, I can do anything, not just what I'm doing now. So, like, once the resistance came in, I took it as a sign that the universe was pushing me away from the fighting thing at that moment. And I really went to war in my gym, by the way. Like, I don't want to get into it too deep, but me and the guy who trained me, we end up becoming enemies. We fight in the gym, like a bad fight. He tore muscles in my lower back. I couldn't sleep for like 2 months. I was fucked up, couldn't lay down. Like, it got bad. Like, it got real ugly in there.
Wow.
He tried to have me kicked out. He told, like, all kinds of lies on me. Just a lot of bullshit was going on, like crazy high-stress bullshit. And I was just like, for what? Like, I'm just excited to be able to train, but no one else took it that guy just didn't take it like that. So when I hit that road, he tried to have me kicked out of the gym I was in, and I ended up getting him kicked out of the gym, which was amazing because he was, like, their only, like, high-level pro, and he ended up getting kicked out of the gym. But then after he was gone and I started programming with the rest of the gym, I realized that they were just as sneaky as he was, and that's why he was together with them in the first place. So then I was just I just walked away from that gym. It was January of that. Like, it was just the new year, and I walked away from the gym. I remember seeing the guy who owned the gym the last day, and I was like, yeah, I'm taking off to Nova Scotia for a bit. He's like, all right, man, I'll see you when you come back. And I was like, yeah, bro, for sure. And I remember thinking, like, no, you won't. And I left, and I walked out of that gym, and I went down to Nova Scotia. I stayed with my buddy for a month, and he owned a studio in Halifax, and I just sat up there around, like, actual working artists that were making a living off this shit, and I just cut my demos in there and just soaked up game, just like how I did in the drug game, soaked everything up, and just applied it for myself.
Wow. That's amazing. So at what point, so you walked away from that gym, and then is that when you decided, okay, so that is when you decided to start heavily immersing yourself in the music, right? Because you didn't want the drama.
Because I used to be a music video director. I forgot to mention that as well. When I first was on the come up in Toronto, I was a music video director. So once I got my eyesight back, my boy, like, I was telling him what happened at the gym, he was like, well, fuck, like, you might as well come down here and shoot these videos. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, I could shoot videos again. Like, I life was so new to me again after 5 years that I just, like, I didn't even fully get to do whatever I want. It's like when someone gets freed from jail, and then they don't even know what to go do. They're like, I don't even want to do anything. Like, it's overwhelming. Like, what do I go do? Like, I can do anything now.
Yeah.
Like, before you didn't have that luxury. So I was like, oh,
overwhelming.
yeah, I can start shooting music videos again. But I went down home, started trying to shoot music videos for artists, because I've always been working with artists from down home. and putting on for down home for a long time, and just working in the black community down home and just trying to do as much as I can do to help the whole cause forward. But I went down home and the guys just didn't want to work. Like all the rappers, they didn't want to work. And I'm sitting around every day and I'm looking at the microphone and I was like, yo, if they ain't going to use this microphone, I bet you I will. Because I was thinking in my head anyway, yo, if I go blind again, at least I can use my voice, right? Like, fuck, I can't shoot music videos blind. I can't punch people blind, but I can fucking rap. So it just made sense. But I always wanted to do it. That was the thing. I was just too scared. I couldn't get out of my own way enough to put myself out there like that. And, you know, it was always a passion of mine. It was like one of the main passions of mine my whole life, you know, was music. You know, there's plenty of pictures of me as a kid. You'll see me with, like, literally like a synthesizer I was making beats on and fucking playing. You know, I always had pianos in my house growing up. My mother's extremely musical. My sister plays music by ear. Like, you know, my dad's in the music. Like, just I grew up in a musical situation. I'm also the descendant of Portia White, who's like one of North America's greatest opera singers. She was the first black woman to sing at Carnegie Hall in New York City. And she's like, I'm descended from her. So, like, I'm from a musical family. And I always, and growing up too, like, when I was growing up in my house, the happiest time in the house was always when the music awards were on. The whole family, like, me and my sister, my dad, my mom, we'd all sit down and we'd watch the Grammys or the American Music Awards or the Much Music Video Awards or the Teen Choice Awards. And that was like the happiest time, really, was just sitting there watching all the different acts, and there'd be something for all of us, you know what I mean? Because there'd be the rap shit, there'd be stuff my dad likes, the rock and roll would be on there, all the old soul shit would be on there, my mom would be loving that, Whitney Houston, all that shit. So, like, music was just always like a happy place for me, always. Like, music was always something that was there with me, but I never thought about it too hard. It was just so much a part of my life that I didn't even think about it. And then when I really realized was being out west smoking weed, you know, when I started working on the rigs and listening to records and realizing, wait a second, like, I understand this. Like, I think I could make this. Like, being able to see the waveforms in my head as I was listening to music and seeing the patterns, different, separating the instruments in my head, seeing the kick drum pattern like it was on a timeline. I could see it in my brain. I was like, yo, I could do this. I can make this. I have the mind for it. I never realized it, though, until I started smoking weed. So, like,
that's
you know, from then I was just kind of like dead set on, like, I always wanted to be able to master making rap. You know what I mean? I wanted to be able to rap and make beats. And I dedicated, like, so much time to it, but it was a long process. And there was a lot of times where I felt like I would never be able to do it. But it was all self-doubt the whole time. I was probably as good at it as I was ever going to be at 19. But it took me many, many years after that to actually put myself out there doing it. You know what I mean?
I think part of it for you was probably that process that you talked about earlier that you went through of gaining your self-value and building up your self-esteem and working on your social anxiety and your emotional intelligence. I think all that together, right? Yeah. So
to put yourself out there as an artist is a very vulnerable situation, and you have to have all those things that you mentioned in check before you can even begin to do that. Because, man, when you put yourself out there, you're out there, man, and, like, not everybody's going to appreciate it. Not everybody's going to understand you. Not everybody's going to feel where you're coming from. Not everybody's going to understand it. Some people are going to hate it. So you have to be ready for all those things. You have to be comfortable with yourself, because none of those things really matter. You're doing it for yourself.
Yeah. And after knowing your story and everything that happened to you and all the different ways that you've evolved, your whole journey, I feel like your music career took off at exactly the right time, like divine timing, literally.
Oh, it did. Trust me. Like, I realize that now. And, you know, shout out to my brother, Caleb Simmons, too, because he's on this journey with me and he's been on this journey for a long time. He's my musical partner. And, even for him, like, you know, I won't get too deep into that. That'll be like another topic for another day. But even our whole journey together because I've known him since we were kids as well. I grew up around him and went to school with him my whole life, same neighborhood, all that shit. So it was like, even for him, it was just like it was the right time. I mean, you know, we've only been at it for about a year and a half, I think, that we've been doing this. And we've already had so many amazing things happen and like, our music's getting played overseas, and we've had so much amazing opportunities. We just played the House of Blues days before Christmas in Las Vegas, sold out show, and it was just like, we were just like, looking at each other like, damn, like, how did we go from, like, Cranberry Crescent in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia to fucking Las Vegas Boulevard, Mandalay Bay Casino, House of Blues? Like, we were just looking at each other, like, having that moment where you look at them, and I'm like, yo, we're still them kids, bro. We're still them kids with the big dreams, and we made it, and we're appreciating it. We're not too cool to appreciate it. You know, like, we've been appreciating and enjoying this whole journey, and just getting to connect with people. Like, music's opened so many doors, man, like, already. Like, it's crazy, and, you know, it's really taken me some places already, and it's taken my vibration around the world, and it's put me in contact with people like you, and, you know, now amazing things are happening, and I just feel like very blessed that I was, and the lesson in that to everybody listening is to get out your way. The only thing, like, I had everything when I was young. I had it all. I just didn't realize it. It took me till longer to realize I had it all, and you have it all too. Whoever's listening, doesn't matter who you are, you have it all. You have everything that you need. You're actually perfect. You're perfect. You were made perfect the day you were born. You were perfect. You might not be perfect in the context of the way the media defines perfection, but you are perfect in context with the universe. The universe makes no mistake. I don't care if you got one arm, one leg, one eye, 2 ears missing, what you look like. You're perfect. You are exactly the way that you were intended. And the more that you embrace exactly who you are, you're going to find out things about yourself that are going to be so deep and so fulfilling that it will give you a source of happiness to go through life with, that will really help you keep your head up in all the dark times that we all have to go through, struggling through living life in this dimension we call Earth, you know? So it's all inside, you know what I mean? Always look within. Like, look out, but always look within first, always. Right. You know? And if you don't know what that means, you have to learn what that means. It might take you years to even understand what it means to look within, but just be committed to that statement and to thinking about it and pondering it and working on it.
Right. And also, the higher we're vibrating, which is feelings of self-love, appreciation, self-value, accepting ourselves for who we are, staying happy, staying positive, knowing that everything is happening in divine timing, the more we manifest the things that we want. It's when you start operating in these lower frequencies of fear, guilt, shame, regret. All of those are such lower vibrational frequencies that you start rejecting. You know, that's why I feel like you finally got to a place energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and all of it. And that's why your success just started unfolding. And it still is, because you're just vibrating higher and higher, you know, like you're just learning more and more and becoming.
Yeah, I'm just getting
higher.
started, man. I just started ringing the bell. Trust me, my bell just got the little ping for the first time. It's just light right now. I'm about to hit the gong. You know what I mean? And really start shaking shit up.
Exactly. It's just starting, and it happens so fast. So let's talk about the music that you have out. So you have an album out, and you can talk about that and tell people where they can find it. So you can feel free to let everybody know that.
Oh, this is the good part. I'd love to tell you guys this. And if you enjoyed this podcast today, for those who are listening and those who will be listening, please do me a favor and check out my music, because we're all on lockdown. I don't care where you're at. You're on lockdown. There's no excuse. You're bored. You're at your house. Just check it out. You know what I mean? If you don't like it, let me know. If you like it, let me know. Either way. If you feel something, I did my job, whether it's hate, love, but you can find me on any platform in the world. I would suggest listening to me on Spotify or iTunes or Apple Music, because they're paying me the most money per stream. But you can check me out anywhere: Deezer, Amazon, Tidal, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Napster. There's all kinds of shit out there, all kinds of streaming shit right now. I'm on everything. My name is Andru Winter, Andru, Winter, Winter, and I have a new album out with my brother Caleb Simmons, PAID, because me and Caleb, we got everything together before this could happen, just like we talked about. So the last thing for us to get was paid. We got the spirituality, we learned all the lessons, we've grown as people, we've educated. Now we just need to get paid. So we called the album Paid, and it's gotten us paid since then. And we've manifested that. and it's an amazing EP. It's a extended playlist. It's not a LP, so there's only 6 songs on it, but there's 6 amazing songs, and they all have a different vibration. Some of them are storytelling, some of them are fun, some of them are just like enjoying ourselves, you know what I mean? Some are deeper. It's more catered towards the female audience. We do a fusion of hip hop and R&B. So if you like listening to like Chris Brown and Tyga together, if you like listening, you know, back in the day to, you know, I know it's a bad word now, but if you like listening to R. Kelly and Jay-Z back in the day when they did their thing, if you like listening to 112 and Big or Mace, or if you like that combination of singing and rapping, we're the new age embodiment of that shit. And we make the best music in Canada. We feel like it. We got the highest level production. We sound the best. We put the most energy into our music. So yeah, check it out. Paid. The single on Paid is Incredible Hulk. That record's going crazy in every country right now. I've heard that record everywhere, and it makes me so happy. On my own birthday, I heard it in a club, and people were singing it. People I don't know were singing it, and they don't even know it was my record. And I was just looking there and dumbfounded. And I was just like, damn, you know, this is cool. People with me and Caleb are being heard. You know what I mean? That's all we want. We're not trying to be the coolest guys. We're not out there for the biggest numbers and the most money anymore. We're just out there to be heard, man. We're taking enough. We're making enough money to make it happen, to be able to offer up our art. You know what I'm saying? But we're always on the quest for more. And we're trying to inspire people that are from our province to do bigger things. Like us playing at the House of Blues in Las Vegas. To me, that was big. You know what I mean? That was the biggest stage that I think any two Nova Scotian musicians have been on, urban musicians anyway. So we're just trying to inspire kids from the black community to down home to pursue music instead of drugs, prostitution, pimping, these types of things, because there's enough money to be made in music now. There's more money in music than there ever was. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them lie to you. When you see these videos and they talk about the industry, that's from the industry point of view. For you as an independent, there's more money to be made in rap than there's ever been made. And trust me, there's money out there for anybody that wants to do hip-hop. Hip-hop is a fucking cash cow. Don't ever let them lie to you. Think about this, right? Let's say an 80-year-old woman from Norway, right? Let's say she learns how to fucking spin on the turntables and she learns how to cut up, she learns how to scratch on the turntables. Do you not think people are going to pay her big money to fucking cut it up? And I'm not saying if she sucks. I mean, if she actually masters the craft of DJing, do you know the amount of money an 80-year-old Norwegian woman would make DJing around the world? So that's what I'm trying to tell. The point I'm making is there's money in hip-hop. Learn how to spin on your head. There's money for you. They will use you in movies. They call it special skills. They will put you in scenes where they need breakdancers, and they will pay you good money to sit around, be catered to, hang out on movie sets, get to meet movie stars, eat good food. Jessica knows the life. Learn how to do anything, any aspect of hip-hop. Learn how to spray paint. If you learn how to spray paint, the city's going to pay you money to go do a mural somewhere. That's what's happening now all over Toronto. You know what I mean? Street artists are getting paid good money in order to do murals. Their art's being appreciated. It's not being painted over. Like any aspect of hip-hop, man, learn how to engineer. Learn how to record. If you learn how to record people's music, you'll never go broke. People are always looking for a place to record. Learn how to shoot a music video. Learn how to snap a picture. People need media. There's so much money in hip-hop that people need to go out there and realize it and get it. And it's not just for the people that have the astronomical commercial success with the legacy media that we associate with success. There's average, everyday people that have their own fan bases that make their money. Think about it. If you had 1,000 fans, all you need is 1,000 loyal fans to be rich forever. Think about if every time you put out a record, it was $9.99, and you had 1,000 good fans, and they all bought that record, right?
Right.
Then think about if you put out a T-shirt, and you could count on that 1,000 people to all buy a T-shirt. You had a concert, you could count on 1,000 people to show up, buy a ticket for $20. You're looking pretty good. That's only 1,000 people. Now imagine 10,000. Imagine 20,000, 30,000, right?
Why do you think the industry from the inside are telling people that there's no money to be made? Why are they doing that? To minimize
because there's not enough money for them to be made because the ball's been put in our court, right?
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
Ball's not in their court no more, right? They have to perpetuate that thing and make you feel like see, I'll break some math down to you, right? Major label artist gets 1 million spins on Spotify, gets about $3,000. We'll say about $3,700 for 1 million spins on Spotify, 1 million streams, $3,700. let's say at best they're in a 60-40 deal, which would be like incredible. It's almost unheard of nowadays. Usually they're just getting raped, but like let's just say they're in a 60-40, right? So they take that $3,700, the label takes 60% of it. So now like the artist walks away with like $1,100, $1,200, $1,500, something like that. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. Someone sitting around with a calculator, guaranteed, fucking doing the math. Who doesn't know his math? But anyway, whatever it is, they get like $1,000 bucks,
Don't ask
right?
me.
Out of that 3,700. Now, independent artist owns all of his shit, right? He gets 10,000 spins. He gets the same amount of money as that guy that got 1 million spins, and he keeps his whole pie, right? And then the potentiality is there for him to grow that and make more. And there's never going to be anybody digging in his pocket. So don't let them lie to you. There's lots of money to be made in rap. I'm making a living off rap right now. We're making money off shows. Don't tell them you don't get paid for shows unless you're a big artist. I got paid for every show that we did, and we got paid handsomely, and we got taken care of. So
amazing.
Get your money.
That's awesome.
Whatever you want is what you're going to get.
Great message.
If you don't stand up for your rights, people ain't going to give them to you. You know what I mean? You have to know what your worth is and know the climate, because that's where ignorance pops in, right? If you don't know what's going on, then anybody can finesse you. So, oh, well, you don't deserve that. You're just starting out here. You got to do this, this, and this before you get this. But if you know, then no one can fuck with you. So empower yourself with knowledge, because the more you know, the less fuck-withable that you are. You see
That's
what I'm saying?
it. That's my word. It's true, though.
There you go.
Knowledge is quite literally the most power that you could possibly have. Learn.
That's why it's the most guarded thing. Think about it.
Is.
What's more guarded than real knowledge? What do you have to pay big money for to go to school? For knowledge, right? It's the most expensive thing that there is to get, and it's the thing that people are trying to hide the most from other people, because it's empowering. But see,
it has the most value.
Strong people, exactly, and strong people, they don't seek to control people. Strong people seek to empower people. So it's always going to be weak people that run the earth, because they seek to control. The strong, they're too busy giving up all the game to everybody so everybody else can have what they have, right? They're not trying to create a differential in knowledge that leads to a fucking power shift.
Right. Back to your point about we can do anything with what we want with our creativity. And honestly, it's like there's so many creative people out there, and you have the internet to share whatever you want to share, whatever it is that you want to, that you like to do creatively, and that you want to put out there. And literally, back to the knowledge, anything that you want to learn related to your craft is accessible. You can watch any tutorial on literally anything. So
the floodgates are open now. You got no excuse to be ignorant now. The internet's there. If you're ignorant now, it's your own fucking fault. If shitty stuff's happening to you, it's your own fault. If you're sick and unhappy, it's your own fault. I'm telling you right now, they're gonna crucify me for this, but I'm telling you right now, anything that you don't like that's going on, I don't give a fuck. Stop having a victim's mentality. It's your own fault. Yep. You can figure it out. You can find your way out of any situation. Never feel like there's any situation out here that you are not empowered to change if you choose to do so.
Fully agree. And owning your power and knowing that you have the power is the best thing that could ever happen to you. Because I've been at the point also where I felt hopeless, like you have, and things were really bad, in a certain way, years back. And it wasn't until I woke up and realized I have all the tools I need. They're all accessible to help myself get out of this feeling and like rut or whatever in my life. And I literally pulled myself out of it with knowledge, with educating myself, with finding the tools to raise my vibration. So I just love that everybody got to hear your story, because there are so many extremes from point A to point Z. You've had it's almost like you've had like multiple lives, like quite literally. And to go from where you were at on the floor, couldn't get up, that's how devastated you were from the life that you were living, to where you're at now. Anybody can pull themselves out of anything. So I think that's like a major message on this for with your story on this show today. If Andrew could do it, you guys can do it too.
And trust me, because I was the most scared, I was the most awkward, I was the most socially anxious. I was all that shit, and I did it all without drugs, by the way. I did this all without pharmaceuticals, just so everybody knows. I wasn't on any kind of pills, depression, even when I was going through the blindness, all that shit. And I had a hip replacement during being blind because they fucked my hip up with friggin' corticosteroid. So I had to learn how to walk again, and I was blind, and I still didn't take the medications. I still wrapped my head around it the good old-fashioned way with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
Unreal. I didn't even know that part of your story either. That's
no pharmaceutical. There was just a lot of Mary Jane, a whole lot of Mary Jane, and a whole lot of nothing else. There was no liquor. There wasn't much liquor. There's a little bit of beer, you know what I'm saying? But there wasn't a whole lot of anything other than just Mary Jane and learning. Manly P. Hall. I got to say that name while I'm on here. Anybody who's listening, go look up Manly, Manly, P, the initial dot Hall, Hall. That man is my guru. That person basically gave me the most amount of game. Actually, I'm not going to speak in street. That person gave me the most amount of knowledge that I then turned around and used to empower myself. And I think that anybody listening to his lectures, and there's infinite Manly P. Hall lectures on every aspect of life, and he's going to make more sense to you than anybody that's ever spoke to you. And it's all just going to click very simply and very easily. That's how a good teacher should be. Good teacher should be simple and to the point. That's why I'll probably never be a teacher, because I talk too much and I go on tangents. But anyway, Manly P. Hall is a great teacher. Check him out, and you'll learn something amazing, guaranteed.
I fully agree. And I just was introduced to him like a few years ago by a friend, like videos and lectures. And at first it was like a lot, but the more you listen to it, he's just brilliant. Just completely brilliant. To me, he's the smartest man that's ever been.
Yes, I think he's the smartest man that's ever been philosophically. And I'm talking of antiquity, everything. I'm talking about Plato, Socrates. I'm talking about Aristotle. I'm talking about all the great philosophers that came along. Because he was the modern embodiment, he'd accumulated all their knowledge and put all their knowledge in perspective from a point of because they say hindsight's 20/20. So there was some of their philosophies that they were too deeply involved in their particular society to see beyond. But he really made sense of. He basically makes sense of the world up until this point and explains everything to you, why everything is the way it is. He'll explain different religions to you, the histories of these religions, but he explains everything from a very objective. He's one of the best speakers I've ever taken in at keeping an objective way. He's not pushing a narrative. He's looking at everything objectively, and he's looking at everything from a logical, common sense point of view, and just a brilliant man. He helped me a lot. It's crazy. But his voice is so boring to most people in this day and age that they can't take him in for more than a second. When I'm listening to him, people will be like, what in the fuck are you listening to? But if you can get past the sound of his voice and take in his words, man, you are going to get the surprise of a lifetime.
I fully agree with you, and that's exactly how I felt when I first heard him in doing a lecture. It was my friend Rosalie. She's from Toronto. She's very all about him. And shout out Rosalie. But we had a lot of spiritual things in common, her and I. She was a very close friend. And anyway, she's the one who introduced me to Manly P. Hall. And at first I was like, oh my God, could this guy sound more but once you start, like you said, taking away the messages, and if you have a philosophical, mind, it's just oh my God,
brilliant. Epiphany.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I love Alan Watts too. I gotta say, Alan Watts.
Oh yeah, shout out to Alan, man. Alan's my nigga too. Don't get it twisted, man. Excuse my language.
Exactly. Okay, wait. So before we go, you have another single out. So let's shout that out as well, right?
Braxton Hicks. Yeah, I have a new single out. It's on all the platforms. It's fucking booming. If you listen to this shit in your car and you turn it up all the way, not in your car because most people ain't traveling too far, but But as long as you got some bass, like, you guys need to hear the bass. If anyone's out there listening to my music and you're just listening to it on your phone, like just off the phone speaker, just turn it off because you're not hearing it. You have to hear the music. Like, we make our music a lot of bottom end heavy. You know what I'm saying? All of our tracks got fat bottom ends. You know what I mean? So if you're not in a friggin' place environment where bass is available, you're not going to hear it properly. But listen to Braxton Hicks. It's out on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, all that good shit. It's Andru Winter and Caleb Simmons. Shout out to my brother Caleb Simmons. That's my boy forever. That's my boy for life. I love that guy, man. And we feel like we're making the best music right now. We stand by it. And we're that next wave. Everybody knows it. Everybody can feel it. So please take the time to check it. You know what I mean? And put my words to the test. Don't just let me sit here and talk shit to y'all. Go check it. And if it ain't up to par, let me know. And I'm going to step my game up.
There you go. They're going to be impressed. Trust me. I've listened to a bunch of your songs, and I was just like, wow, they're all so different, but they're all so interesting and special and unique. And really, really
Thank
good.
you.
Like, you can't not love them. I even got my partner, Gerald Barclay, excited for us to do a music video. Shout out Gerald Barclay,
man,
GB.
I'm so excited about that, man. Gerald Barclay is a legend in the game. He's a pioneer in the black community and a pioneer in the entertainment industry. Much love and respect to Mr. Gerald Barclay. All respect to the God, you know what I mean? Shout out to everybody in Staten Island. Shout out to the whole Wu-Tang situation, man. Shout out to everybody in the Wu-Tang Clan. Y'all inspired me to be the man that I am today. You guys gave me knowledge, wisdom, and understanding as well. You guys taught me about the gods and the earth and the supreme mathematics. So, yeah, shout out to Gerald Barclay, and I'm more than excited to work with him. And Caleb and I just feel like we talk about it every day. We're just, and as well as you, Jessica, you're extremely talented, beautiful, educated, articulate, thoughtful, insightful. It's a true blessing to have you as a friend and to be able to have these conversations. So, like I said, man, shout out to you guys, man.
Oh, wow, likewise. We're all happy to meet you, too. And, yeah, GB and I are super excited to work with you guys. And he was just like, wow, these guys are dope. That's what he said when he heard your music. So, yeah.
That's all I need him to say, man. I know what that means, man. As long as you use the G word, we're good, man. As long as you use the dope word, we good. We good.
Yep. Exactly. And when I was actually writing the book with him about Wu-Tang, because he obviously grew up with them and did a lot of their first music videos, when I was writing the book on his story, that's what I remember him. The only two times I heard him saying it like that was when Wu-Tang was, I don't know, creating a song for the first time, and he heard it. Everybody just looked at each other and they were like, this is dope. So it was the same reaction.
It's crazy even ponder that, man.
Yeah. Yep. So he said the same thing when he heard your guys' stuff. So that made me like, I was like, I got chills.
That's an incredible, it's been amazing. Like I said, man, life's such an amazing journey. And I was just on the phone with Caleb this morning, and all we were talking about is how blessed we are. And how lucky we are. And, despite what's going on in the world, that we're so blessed and we're so lucky to have these experiences and to be able to have done what we've done and to be able to look at each other and know that we have true friendship and camaraderie and brotherly love, and to know that we're making moves that are changing things for the better, and that we're touching people's lives, and that we're not just sitting back being average, that we're having the bravery to be who we want to be in the world, and just feeling like extremely blessed. And all this is just an extension of that. Like, I just feel so blessed lately. I'm telling you, if I died today, I'm a happy man. Like, I learned, I know what's going on. I'm not out there doing things that are, hurting people anymore. I'm not, I just feel like I'm effortlessly dancing, moonwalking, if you will, through the time-space continuum now. You know what I mean? And I'm just doing my thing, and it feels great, and I feel so blessed for that, man. So shout out to everybody that's involved in my life that makes it an amazing experience. Shout out to all the people that love me, all the people that support me, and you know what I mean? It's a small group, but I'm telling you right now, it's an amazing group, and I wouldn't be who I am without you guys. Everybody needs somebody. Don't think that you can go through life shunning people away. We need to work with other humans. That's why they're there. If we were meant to live this life alone, you would have been born to an empty planet. You are meant to interact with people. Don't treat people like they're background characters in a movie. When you're walking through the street, start looking people in the eye. Every single person has something to offer you. Every single person has something, a story to tell, an insight to give, something that will make you grow as a person. So, take the time to appreciate people, appreciate life, and appreciate the opportunity to be out here even doing what we're doing. Don't look at it as a burden. Look at it as a blessing. Look at it as you're blessed to be out here on this battleground fighting these fights, getting the chance to be a warrior. That's what everybody wants to be, right? That's what all the movies are about, right? Everybody wants to be strong. Everybody wants to be the hero. Everybody wants to be a warrior. Well, here's your chance. You're living your life, and you have your struggles. And if you can overcome them and you can meet them, with the confidence that you can overcome them, then you're a warrior. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're a house mom. It doesn't matter if you're a firefighter. It doesn't matter if you're a taxi driver. It doesn't matter if you're, an airline pilot. If you're out there and you're fighting all the things that we all deal with on a human level to provide service and to make the world around you better and to help the people around you, then you're a warrior of life, and you should feel really good about that and feel really strong. You know what I mean?
You are amazing. Like, honestly, as you talk and say these things, I can feel how inspired people must be. Like, I sit here with a huge smile on my face. I'm just so happy to hear somebody who's so quickly on their way to their own success, who just really wants to inspire other people to empower themselves. And I think that's the most beautiful thing on the planet is, helping other people to empower themselves. So that's incredible.
That's what we're here to do. Like I said, strong people empower people, and weak people control people. Always remember that. If anyone's trying to control you, they're not a strong person. They're a weak person. It doesn't matter how they present themselves. Inside, they are weak. And you have to know that. Only the strong help other people up. You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind and know the difference between the two.
Absolutely, 100% true. So I'm going to wrap this up because we are running out of time and there's another show after us. But let's announce your music one more time, where they can find you, and then we'll say goodbye.
My name is Andru Winter, Andru. Yes, I know it's spelled weird, but it's Andru Winter, as in the season, the coldest season, the season that signifies the end, and the spring is the beginning. But anyway, not to get philosophical, Andru Winter, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, overseas, Deezer, Tidal, anything that you want to YouTube. Just look my name up on YouTube. Look my name up on Google. Look up Andru Winter on Google, and you are going to find whatever you need to find about me. You're going to find interviews. You're going to find music videos. You're going to find links to songs. And worst comes to worst, just look me up on Instagram, man. Scotian Savage, SCOTIAN SAVAGE. And if you hit me up on Instagram, and if you can't find my music anywhere else, I'm going to personally send you my music. You know what I mean? Because that's what it's about. As long as you hear it, I don't give a damn. So check it out. And Jessica, thank you for having me. You've been an amazing interviewer.
Thank you so much.
Very insightful.
We're out of time. Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you so much for being on. Everybody, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next week on another episode. Actually, tomorrow for another episode of A Billion Realities. Thanks again, Andru.
Pow, pow. You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us today on A Billion Realities. Please stay tuned for next Wednesday's show at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care, everyone.